Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the amazing day of February 22nd, 2022. It's 2/22/2022. And I'm sure amazing things will happen for us also at the time date 11/22 and other things throughout our day. So just encouraging everyone to use all of the positive energy that is flowing to us and through us all throughout today. I got up and was making some music and sharing with everyone that right before we tuned in officially, right before we started the recording officially of what I was working on for today. So I'm super energized. I'm very excited. Welcome. I'm just seriously encouraging everyone to use the positive energy for today in terms of going in a good direction, flying in a good direction through time. Welcome to everyone who's here. I knew more people would be tuning in the waiting room, so we will do that as I do my little intro. So beautiful to see everyone tuning in. First, I will do some wonderful, not housekeeping, but let's say administrative details. We had an amazing vocal toning workshop intensive, as opposed to using the language of boot camp and being so harsh. We had, hello, Angel, good to see you. And Lyson, thank you for tuning in because I know that your schedule is changing, and thank you for making time for us. Aaron, good to see you. Good to see your face. Thank you for being here and being here live. Yes. Had an amazing vocal toning intensive workshop last week. And for anyone who wants to either hop on board and join anew, you are welcome to do so. There will be more workshops and sessions going forward. And also, in order to continue the momentum, like if the workshop was an intensive exercise program of building spiritual muscles through these vocal toning exercises and going up and down the chakras of the body, keep your exercise momentum going. Don't go back to quote unquote being a couch potato. Not that any of you are couch potatoes, but don't relax on that momentum now that we've got some good muscular growth. So the idea is, Patricia, who is tuned in on this broadcast right now as Trish has set up her Discord server and a Zoom room of her own, so that way it can be independent of me and my presence there, and is setting up daily progress. And no offense to anyone. There we go. I'm just muting you so that we get a clean audio recording. And that might be Lucy, who's often got a lot of things going on in the background where she is doing her broadcasting from or receiving from. If you are interested in continuing the momentum going forward, if you are a participant in the workshop, or if you are totally new and want to hop on board and see what it is all about, these are a series of using your voice and your sound. You literally, what the sound that you make here with this part of your body, in order to sing light and harmonic frequencies into all areas and all layers of your body, self-empowerment, self-healing, we would call it ascension exercises or ways of transforming your energy field and moving into higher states and leveling up on many levels. Here, Lucy, I'm going to mute you now because I don't love you just for the sake of the recording. And yeah, so we did a lot of that work, and the work continues. Not going to be like, okay, work hard for 1 week and then drop you down and have nothing happen. And I see your furry overlord is with us. That's very beautiful. So yeah, Trish tuned in on this broadcast, has set up Discord and also Zoom, so that I sent out to everyone who's on the email list from the workshop that if you want to be a part of it, there are the join up links that you can click on those links to be a part of it at certain times of the day. Please be aware that her times on Zoom come through from her time zone, which is Beirut time zone. So you're going to have to do a translation as to whatever time zone you are in. And Trisha has also set up Skype, so she's got it ready for you. And I sent that out in the summation email that has all the archives from the vocal toning workshop. But let's say if you're not on that email list, because I like to keep everything separated so that it's all consensual and no one feels like they are being inundated with emails that are unwanted or whatever, please contact me or Patricia if you are interested in being a part of this. So you can do that if you're here live in the chat, and if you're catching this as the archive, you can email me at flyingrainbowlasagna@me.com. You can also, I'll pass everything along to Patricia and make sure that she gets connected to you all too. So we're still working on the exact connectivity. Oh, and if you have a little something to say, you can unmute and say it for us. That might just be easier.
I'm saying it's the same, yeah. I'm saying we're one, it's the same. So if they email you or they email me.
Good, there you go, perfect. Yeah, we're still working out our exact connectivity issues of exactly who to contact and how and when, but the great my great reciprocal appreciation, admiration, and gratitude for Patricia being my co-presenter in the workshop, and also for taking on the muscular energy of continuing doing the exercises and leading people through. And also, so that's group exercises on the Discord or the Zoom. If you want to do private sessions with her where you sing or share what you are experiencing, and she can give you good information and guidance about what she hears and can guide you through, you can contact her also for personal sessions. That is also something new that is going on for her. So all of that, if you want the details and you're not already on the email list, contact me. I'll put you on the email list and we'll keep you informed of all of that. That's the not house cleaning. That's the generalized fun and wonderfulness of what is going on. Now into today's presentation, Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is the level 2 information, and it is lesson 5. So what I've been doing each week is really segmenting or focusing or spotlighting on one level or the other, because it's so much that I tend to go into overtime. And rather than inundate you and have to talk super duper fast in order to try to get this all through, what I'm doing is focusing. So this week it is a level 2 presentation. Oh, Patricia is so beautiful. She says she wanted to thank me for the workshop stuff, and I am so pleased and gratified.
Yeah. Really, if it weren't for you, I just want to say this is a miracle. You know, to me, it's a miracle that all this is happening. It was only something internal, and so I cannot thank you enough. If it weren't for you, this wouldn't be happening on this planet. You know what I mean? So you allowed all this, and you saw your grace, your nobleness, your reflections, your insight, your input. You have no idea, Aurora, really what all this, how it will serve us all, and how it will serve me. Everything that you said, the little things that you said, everything that I do now, I'm starting one thing after the other. You know, you cannot integrate everything. Like just one advice you said, it took me into this automatically, this breathing from like a rose when you fill the whole shack, and then I went without breath anymore, just from one insight, So I'm gonna go over all the videos, and I'm sorry I spoke so much over there and I keep interrupting. I'm really sorry for this, and thank you for the way you take it. It's amazing. Such a lesson. You are our lesson. You are my lesson. And so really, I'm going to go over them, and I'm going to put all your insights, and I'm going to take them into consideration. And I'm sure it's going to take people to another place. And one thing I have to say about the light is above sound. Light is above sound. Like, that's why. So please, guys, if you can, please focus on your visualizations the most, please. The colors, please. It will exponentially fix our sound. I've been trying things also since, and really coming to beautiful conclusions. I wish you joined last night for the first session. I fixed amazingly the throat. We're going to do it again. Okay, I have amazing ways to fix it. This is also magical. I just want to thank you, Aurora, for making this dream come true, really. Like, it's all magic, and it's all thanks to you.
Thank you for that. I'm hugging you. Received in gratitude. Thank you. That is so amazing to hear. Thank you. And so much love to you, Patricia. Really.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And your collective. Thank you all.
Oh, it's Lucy. I don't know if I did the time wrong, but it sounds like there's a class today at 3 o'clock. Did I convert it wrong? Because that's when we're here.
What time?
Yes, it's
so
true.
Lucy is East Coast United States.
Right. So for my time, it was 3 in the afternoon, which is an hour from now, and also at midnight, I believe. Not sure.
Yeah, so there might be an overlap because she set it up for every day of the week, and Tuesdays is an unusual day because we're here.
It's a mistake. It's not a mistake. I put them all, but today I realized I have the class, so this is more important. If I can put one earphone here for the other tone, right, I might do that. Yeah, because Darla also is waiting, so we'll see. So
don't worry, and class today is going to be recorded. Class today will be recorded, so people can
So
always catch the
tired.
archive if they want to do vocal toning, and we're never insulted, because if people
Okay.
have attention, if they need to focus on their journey of whatever they're doing. Yeah, and thank you for the continuing the work of building the spiritual muscles, and so pleased and gratified. It's an amazing project. And yes, there's always the challenge of coordinating the time zones and all these different things. So everybody bear with us on that, but it's incredibly worthy work. And it is very much synchronizing our energy fields, our communication systems, physical and non-physical, and miracles, doing miracles and magical, supernatural, beyond the physical experiences. So I'm so pleased and so gratified to see all this happening. And you guys know I have lots of my angelic assignments throughout the day. So that's why I can't always be there at every toning session, but that's why I'm so happy that Patricia is here in order to be doing that work and carrying so much of that energy. So that is hugely, hugely positive and hugely wonderful.
I just want to say, whenever you can, you'll be our guest of honor, you know?
I will,
So
absolutely.
anytime,
I will prioritize
and you will
being
be
able to
toning.
tune in.
And you will be toning.
I totally
It
will.
be,
So
you know,
I'll see how I can stagger my schedule to be able to do it too. So I'll be
you
hopping
can come
in
in
and
the
out.
end of the sessions.
Yeah, I'll hop in and out.
At the end of the sessions.
Good, guys. You know that I will. It's a commitment. It's a commitment. And now my energy will be there too. Okay, so thank you so much for all of that. And yeah, super appreciation to Lucy, Angel, Art, Hans was part of it, Martine was part of it, and I'm not sure if some other people here were part of it also, but catching it in the archive. So I sent out the archive of all of the 6 days so you can catch up on that. And yeah, you can always record, or we'll record a little homework ditty, you know, of just singing up the chakras if you ever need to have a little refresher course of what it's all about, right? Very good. We'll do that too. Okay, so now just doing a little bit of redirect and focusing into lessons for full spectrum humans, where this is the level 2 stuff for lesson 5, and focusing on that completely this week because it's a beautiful, rich topic that I don't, again, with all of these things, I don't want to have to like go over it so fast. So that's why I've almost been kind of like doing alternating 1 week and then the other week to be able to share with it. This topic, it's part 1 is the origins of solar consciousness. And I always tell you, I've got my notes over here, not being rude and looking away. And part 2 is called consciousness discovering itself. So this is all about how everything that we have, and this is going to relate to the lesson teaching that I already did about food ingestion, about being a refinery, your chakras, as I point to this on the wall back here, your chakras or energy centers of your being are a refinery of consciousness of the external physical stimuli from your 5 senses and the physical food that you eat and ingest here in this world into a non-physical or broadcastable signal to go back to the sun that has given it all to us. All of those are foundation teachings for this advanced teaching of what this really is all about. So basically, everything that we are doing here, everything that we experience and everything that we're focused on is based upon solar consciousness. Our sun here in the sky, our nearest star is Sol, S-O-L, and we call this solar consciousness. Everything that the sun here in our solar system being the epicenter, the central core of everything that we experience, not just here in this planet, this world that is known as Earth or Gaia. You know me, I always have to get going with water. Pardon me. Earth as being one aspect of the solar system, and the solar system containing many other shells, just like an electron has a shell, aspects of consciousness, planetary bodies, and all of them are like a chord. Here, I don't have a guitar, but I have my piano. There you go, chord and music. So our solar system has many different planets, and each one has its own unique signature, different music, and when they're all played together, it is a chord, and the chord is the emanation from the sun, which is our nearest star. Some of this might seem obvious or reiterative to your common sense knowledge, but I'm going to be reframing this within a galactic perspective. So be open-minded in what I present. One presentation is the idea of the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, Roy G. Biv. These are the visible spectrum of the emanations from from our nearest star, visible light. And there's all sorts of other emanations that come from our star as well. Everything down into infrared, which we experience as heat. Sunlight falls on your skin and you're like, oh, like that feels so warm and that feels so good. And it penetrates deep inside of us. It's infrared, lower wavelength than red. So it's a more giant wavelength and a lower frequency that we feel as heat. And then there are, of course, the broadcasts that are up above the violet frequency that we mostly, as humans, do not perceive, that are ultraviolet, higher than violet, and all the way into X-rays, gamma rays, these types of incredibly fast, incredibly tiny frequency waves that mostly are not perceived in the five senses of the human. However, you have to understand that our sun is but one point of consciousness in the sky. You're like, Aurora, I'm rolling my eyes. I know this. I look up at the night sky all the time and I see all of these stars up there. Like, you're being very obvious. I know, but I'm getting someplace. Each star has its own energy signature. Each star, just like each one of us, has a unique fingerprint, a unique voice, a unique DNA signature, a unique facial pattern. That's your character of who you are. And each sun, each star, sun star, in the sky is its own unique character and has its own unique recipe of light, that the light that comes from each emanator of this galactic presence is slightly different and slightly unique and has its own character. So our sun's light is actually yellowish, it's actually yellow-greenish. And that has to do with the color proportions of how much all of these things add up. I'm going to do a brief little riff right now on additive color mixing. This is different than subtractive color mixing. In my paintings that are behind me on the wall here, what I used was actual pigments of paint. And when you mix them together, the type of color theory that you're using is called subtractive color theory. And that means if I took all of the paints in my paint box and poured all of them together into a giant bucket, which I would never do, which I'm horrified at the thought of, and I'm sure you are too, it would make like a goopy brownish black. Everything would get poured together. It would not actually make a beautiful clarity because those types of pigments work on subtractive color mixing. So it's different rules to be able to create different colors when you add pigments together. However, in pure light, which is the light of awareness and the light of visible potentials and waveforms that come to us from the sun and the other stars, what we're experiencing is additive light mixing. And that's the same as, I'm pointing at this little guy on the wall behind me, your energy centers or energy fields or chakras or your subtle body or your light body. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Red plus orange plus yellow plus blue plus green plus indigo plus violet equals white light equals you. So that is basically the totality of every single one of the layers of your cake, the wedding cake of you, as I described it in our vocal toning workshop. All of those layers of you add up to white. So if you took all of the layers of you and poured them together, quote unquote, into a giant bucket of light, what you would get is not a brownish soupy black. You would get pure white light, the pure white light of clarity, which coming from our sun, Sol, is actually a slightly yellowish color. I don't know if you guys can see, but I have this light over here. That's my fill light for my broadcasting area here, my video area. And it's got kind of like a yellowish, it's a warm light is what I'm trying to say. I have a yellowish orange light shade that's on here. Cause like guys, lighting makes everything, right? Like, like if you're in front of a fluorescent bulb, like one of these, whatever dressing rooms or something like that, like the fluorescent light, like it makes you look like a dead zombie. You don't want that. When you want to be able to look like you're like happy and alive, warm light. This is very big. This is just like basic photography and artistic presence. When you're lighting something, the light that I have over here is a warmish, yellowish, orange, golden light. And that's very similar to what we get coming from the sun, which is the tone, the unique character of it is kind of a yellowish color with a bit of green in there. And my whole point on all of this is to say that there's a slightly different color recipe for each one of the stars that are up there, out there, in there, beyond. In astronomy, the the scientific study and perception through objective materialist tools in this world, they recognize the unique signature of each star that's out there. Like if you're measuring light through a telescope and you see a particular star, you can look at the star's frequency spectrum, its recipe, and be able to see which star it is in large sense based upon that color recipe. So we are calibrated to, as emanations of and consciousness children of, the nearest star that is not a part of us, but is like our parent and our epicenter and the everythingness that we are. This teaching here today is really all about how the sun, this particular star that's so close to us, is the epicenter of everything that we are, and how that star then is connected through non-physical, non-local presence to the center of the galaxy that is also the center of everything that we are. Hold on. I will draw a little bit on this too. The sun is a star, this is obvious. And so when I refer to it, I will refer to it as stellar or celestial consciousness. This is also big when I talk about the sun and the stars. These are not merely giant thermonuclear furnaces in the sky or something like that, a big giant hot ball of gas and plasma, which is often how it is presented in the realm of physics of this time and place, this scientific objective materialist viewpoint. Yes, the sun and stars are giant balls of gases and plasma. That's a valid descriptor, but that's like saying that you are just like a bag of mostly water. Like we know that you're more than that. We know that you're more than just like kind of a watery, sack of fluids and lipids and things like that. You're more than just that, because you also have a physical presence and a heart and a consciousness and your own unique soul or energy signature. The sun and the stars are the same. They also are much, much more than just a giant ball of energy or a giant thing in the sky that's emitting a lot of other stuff into the world. Every sun and every star out there is a point of consciousness. I'm going to get going with some drawings because you know that I speak through drawings a lot. Here, let me go to just the whiteboard. So let's say I'll draw a very rudimentary planet here. Planet Earth is blue, and I'm gonna draw some green continents on there. Just scribble in some continents. Continent 1, continent 2. Use your imagination if you please. And I'll just change this to focus on me. And then I'll use, how about this orange color to represent the sun, which is our star, emanating these are light waves coming outward, long hair, the star has long hair. These are all light waves that come outward and that reach our planet, physicality structure, materiality structure, and let's make this one an arrow that extends endlessly. When I draw these arrows in my shorthand, please understand that these are math vector shorthands for an arrow simply extends endlessly in the direction that I have it pointing. And then let's also draw way up here, out here. This is a representation of the center of our galaxy. And I'm drawing it in black because I'm saying like, that's a black hole, that's a singularity. And I'm kind of drawing these arms that swirl like a big giant pinwheel because our galaxy is kind of a pinwheel shaped galaxy. And each one of these arms has a multitudinous, numerous, almost uncountable number of stars that make up the swirls in the swirliness of this spiral galaxy. P.S. Many different galaxies and galaxy shapes have been observed through telescopes from our viewpoint, vantage point here. So not every galaxy is a spiral-shaped galaxy, but that is the basic shape of what ours is shaped like. And there are many other forms. This is also part of the uniqueness structure. Like as I'm explaining and describing this to you, understand that all of these levels of reality are fractals. Fractals means tiny self-similar segments of the larger whole. So the things that are true for you as this individuated structure become true for the planet that you are on or within, become true for the solar system that you are on or within, becomes true for the galaxy that you are on or in or surrounded by or within, present for. So you have your own unique fingerprint, DNA, soul signature, sound, face, facial structure, iridology, all of these things unique to you. Same thing with each planetary structure being unique and having its own unique music. Sun, star, emanation having its own unique recipe of light and consciousness, vibration, or set of characters, characterization, character features. And same thing with galaxies. Go back to my whiteboard. That let me choose a different color now. Apologies for that brief interruption. This galactic structure is just one dot in a much, much larger structure. So now I'm using violet here. Here's the giant epicenter of a much, much larger structure. Here's a galaxy that's a tiny dot. This galaxy is a tiny dot over here within the larger thing where there are many other galaxies. There's galaxy, 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 galaxy. And guess what? This larger galactic superstructure is also a tiny dot in the center of something much, much, much larger. Pull out, pull out, pull out. Like, when I say pull out, I mean like pull back, whoa, like pull back as far as you can with your imagination. Here, Melissa's hopping in to the meeting. Pull back as far as you can in your imagination. It keeps on getting grander and grander on a grander scale. So the sun is the epicenter of our most local consciousness broadcasting center. Like, you know, we used to get TV broadcast from an antenna. This is a long time ago. You used to have an antenna that would be like the tower that would broadcast signals in the air, and you didn't have cable TV or something like that. You received all of your TV broadcasts from the antenna tower, and you had your local antenna that was broadcasting to you. And of course, all of this came from a central broadcasting center. In our world right now, what we have is our sun star that I'm pointing out my window that's up there in the sky as the nearest antenna or broadcasting tower. It is a transceiver, transmitter and receiver, sends out waveform energies and also receives waveform energies back from us. I've done this in other teachings, the consciousness loop or biofeedback loop. So biofeedback loop is, and I want to finish the sentence of the sun is our nearest broadcaster from the Central Galactic Broadcasting System. I want to say Central Galactic Broadcasting Company, like the BBC, you know, like the Central Galactic Broadcasting Company. So there is a supermassive black hole. Let's go back to the whiteboard. Go back to the whiteboard, please. I jump around a lot. We're nonlinear here. Where I'm wiggling my cursor here, the center of this galaxy, there is a supermassive black hole. Energy is going into there in the super stretchy fabric of the cosmos. It is a hugely gravitational object. In this sense, you know, science often describes gravity as a sucking, like, oh, like gravity is holding me down. Gravity sucks things in. You can also think of gravity as a stability presence, a presence of a force of cohesion that holds things together. So our sun star at the epicenter of our solar system is similarly a hugely gravitational object that has a gravitational force that, like, imagine my muscles are really flexing, like I'm holding stuff together. That's the sun. The sun holds stuff together so that we don't just fly off and float off and go elsewhere or be flung hither, thither, and yon all over the entire, you know, vast reaches of interstellar space. Our solar system sticks together. I'm going to make a joke. That's what good waffles do. They stick together. You know, like when you make waffles in the waffle iron. Okay, all right, enough of the silly jokes. But the solar system sticks together, and it does so because of the hugely cohesive and coherent force of the gravity of the supermassive object at the epicenter of our solar system that is known as the star. And it is not only supermassive, like this is my mass of my body, and it is massive. It's the biggest body in terms of physicality structure and stuff of reality like a bowling ball, like that kind of stuff. It is also the most massive structure in terms of consciousness. Here, now, it is the biggest thinker. It is the smartest kid in the class. It is the loudest and most coherent voice in the choir. It's like you guys, I'm sure you've been in a choir at a certain point where there's like that one person that's got like a really loud voice and they're really on key and they really sing loud and they stand out from the crowd. That's the sun. And that's because the sun is this incredibly refined level of consciousness being, a true virtuoso. When I talk in my class all about becoming a genetic virtuoso, the levels of refinement that we are going through on our journey as individuated souls and then as coming together and a soul collective. Where are you heading with all of this refinement journey? And spoiler alert, the answer is you are heading into becoming a star. You become a star. At birth of a star, at the end of this journey. I'm sorry, the movie is called A Star is Born. A Star is Born, but it's usually like a singing star, like la, singing on a stage. But this is different. This is you. Each one of you becomes a star. Very, very deep stuff there. And it's not a spoiler alert because it's more just like a teaser on one of these TV shows when we didn't really give away the plot. We just gave you a little teaser, like, how does this happen? What is this? And also you understand that it is the changing of positions in a beautiful, reciprocal, responsive relationship. So I'm back to now my looping conversation of biofeedback loop. Sun, star sends out consciousness, capabilities, possibilities, and probabilities, physical matter, the stuff that you're even made of, calcium of your body, into you. And then you have all of these experiences through your sensorium. And then you broadcast back to the sun a lot of the stuff that you experience here. That is called a biofeedback loop. Go back to my whiteboard here. And so let me go to a kind of a sun color. The sun gave you this beautiful energy that's here in this world of matter. And I'm going to describe this more fully. And then you have this experience with your 5 senses or more, plus your ESP, sensorium. And then you send that energy back to the star. Here's a little arrow going in this direction. And that is called a biofeedback loop. And this could be analogous to, here's your brain where I'm making a spiral. The sun is your brain. And you over here are like the big toe, the appendage, the distant extremity of the star. And how do you feel from your big toe? You have a signal that goes from your brain all the way down your spinal cord, all the way down to your big toe. And then your big toe like touches on things. It might touch the coffee table and go, ow, that hurts, don't do that. And sends the signal all the way back up your leg and all the way back up your spine into your brain. And your brain perceives what is going on in your big toe. All right. So once again, the sun is a living conscious being, not just a ball of hot gases. It sends out all of these emanations of light. We'll talk about the difference between when that light just simply continues onward on its endless journey, as opposed to interacting with matter or coalescing or becoming matter. When that light interacts with or coalesces or becomes matter, it then sends back a signal, like your big toe touching the coffee table. And it says, hey, there's something out here. I'm doing something. I'm feeling something. And we are a big part of the big toe. Our whole planet is the big toe. Our whole planet is the sensory extremity. So we are just very, very small, whatever, tiny sensors or nerve sensors on a much, much larger being, but that doesn't mean that you don't matter. You know that like you have many taste buds on your tongue, but the whole thing adds up to send an amazing experience of eating and drinking to your brain. So you matter as an individual. I never want you to feel so diminished or insignificant. And you send those signals back. And this is a big part of the partnership that we're in. Melissa makes a comment. It's very, very wise. And I don't want to go past too much in my conversation because I run on before I acknowledge this. Melissa says, and thank you for being here, love is a gravity. Absolutely. I think we can equate love, this love tone of giving and receiving and being in balance and partnership, with gravity. Like gravity is often seen as the enemy here on Earth and by scientific type of minds. That's when they say gravity sucks, because a lot of them are like, I'm in a rocket ship, I'm trying to fly off of the Earth, or I'm in a metal airplane. I'm trying to fly off of the earth, but I have this gravity bringing me down. Or people feel like about their body, like, oh, the gravity is bringing me down. It's making me age or something like that. Body parts like falling down lower as you get older. But I see gravity as, like Melissa is describing, this beautiful force of love, a cohesion, a coherence. Cohesion means holding stuff together, and coherence means you are in synchronization, in unison, moving together, like, the way that dolphins jump together through ocean waves as a pod, or the way that coherent light waves move along through time-space creates a laser. A coherent light beam is a laser, and coherence means that it's something that sticks together, doesn't fall apart. It does not disperse over time. Longevity over time is created by coherence. Gravity creating longevity and coherence over time is a positive thing. The reason why our solar system exists for millions, billions, and uncountable time span, like such a long time span, we're the little tiny fruit flies. We're like, oh my goodness, a fruit fly, pardon me, my mouth and my brain don't always synchronize because one is going so fast. Fruit flies live for like maybe 3 days, and we live for whatever, like 100 years. So for us, our time scale is vastly different than the lifespan of a fruit fly. Overnight in your trash can, they have bred and created a whole civilization overnight from the mango peels or whatever you put in there. And then you open up the trash can in the morning and they all fly out. They're like being born after gestating for hundreds of thousands of years, according to their time scale. Do you understand? Like they're like flying off of the surface of their planet. That's their 1969 and they're reaching the moon. They're like, dun, dun, into space. We're flying out of the trash can. They have a vastly different time scale than humanity does. And humanity similarly has a vastly smaller, shorter, fast blink of an eye time scale compared to the time scale of the planetary structure, the solar system structure, and definitely galactic. And galactic begins to describe the level of consciousness and presence that I come from as Aurora the Collective. You guys know me, I'm a walk-in. I call myself a galactic walk-in. I say galactic because that is the origin of my consciousness and the scale of my consciousness and where I come from as a light being. This is also when people say, what planet do you come from? It's not like planet, not like planet Mars, or not even like a star system that I could point to and say, the star system is named the Pleiades, or the star system is named Alpha Centauri. I come from a galactic scale, which is to say a grouping of many different consciousnesses that I liken to a symphony, many different players in a beautiful symphonic orchestra of consciousness that, again, is not only located in one area of time space defined by like your XY coordinates in a physical space, but is defined by really a value system and an activity level, because we travel like a neural signal. Let me drive is what I'm trying to say. Let me drive with the whiteboard here. Let's draw a bunch of galaxies. I'm going to draw all the galaxies in black. Like here's another spiral armed galaxy. These are very simplified. They're also sometimes they're kind of flattened shapes like this. There's one, here's another one. Here's one that's going to be shaped kind of like almost like a hat, like an old fashioned hat. They're shaped in all sorts of different ways. All right. So now let's choose purple as an Aurora collective color. My collective here, this scribble is my collective. We're a band, we're a group of traveling musicians. And we go from different place to different place. So right now we might be here in this galaxy, but then what we will also do at a certain point is travel on these highways or pathways of pure consciousness that are not through the X, Y coordinates of time space, but are through higher dimensional folding of time space means of travel, more like when I described to you the flying rainbow lasagna, so not from point A to point B, but in a higher dimensional sense, and I'll describe that much more as this lesson goes on. We travel from galaxy to galaxy. So here I went to that, from this galaxy to this galaxy, and then I do something over here as a neural signal, and then also my neural signal travels to this galaxy here, and also travels to this galaxy here, and also travels to this galaxy here. If we looked at this larger, I'm going to choose a brain color, this whole larger structure of galaxies inside of this yellow cloud, the yellow cloud is like a brain. Get it? And that purple pathway is like the pathway of one song in your brain. That's a little song, right? That song, that melody has a pathway in your brain. And the signal of my consciousness as the Aurora Collective, this purple pathway going through all of these galactic superstructures, is like a song within a larger brain. And that is the level of consciousness that I come from. Inside of each galaxy, now we go back. I reversed that song. Now we are focusing just on the brain of this one galaxy, because this galaxy here has at its center, this is the epicenter, that is a supermassive black hole. And the supermassive black hole, again, let's draw a black hole. Here is the stretchy fabric of the cosmos. Here is the infinitely heavy bowling ball of consciousness that is going downward in terms of gravitational pull, inward, downward, and it stretches the fabric of the cosmos consciousness into this type of spiraling inward point that goes infinitely. Here's my scientific arrow that goes inward infinitely to the singularity. There's a big fat singularity at the center of the galactic core. There is also a singularity at the center of the sun. There is also one at the center of the planet. There is also one, here's you. I'm drawing a little tiny stick figure that represents you. I know, my famous stick figures. That guy's head is a little bit off his shoulders, but you get it. That person has a singularity at the center of them, and every single atom and molecule in you has a singularity. Every single chakra has a singularity inside of you, not multiple singularities, all the same singularity. Where is my magical, hold on a second. I have to get my magical scarf. I didn't have it prepared today, like a magician. I have to have this up my sleeve, and then I have to say, where's my scarf? I pull it out like this, and here's my magic fabric of the cosmos, rainbow, stylish fabric coming out of my sleeve. That this is the stretchy fabric of the cosmos, and let's say here I'm stretching it and pointing it with my bowling ball of consciousness. So here's a stretched out part, and here's another stretched out part, and they actually meet and touch together. Both of those little pointy parts meet and touch together. Oh, I'm stretching out another stretchy part. It meets and touches together over here. Another stretchy part, it meets and touches together over here. All of those super stretched out places all meet and overlap in the tiniest little one molecule spot of this scarf, one overlapping little tiny spot that is the singularity, not many, many, many singularities, but only one singularity. That when I have the fabric stretched out like this, you're like, like there's one singularity here, and then there's one over here, and then there's one over here, and one over here. But you guys know, because you are so smart and so well studied, that really what we're seeing is an infinitely folded fabric of singularity that is folding in on itself almost endlessly in uncountable numbers to us, the fruit fly consciousness, that is all coalesced together into one place. That basic premise is huge, because that premise allows us to understand or comprehend how can signals go from, going back to my whiteboard, driving with my whiteboard, how can signals go from here, the galactic supercenter, the great thinker that is the central core persona of that brain, quote unquote, in the sky, all the way over to here, to our sun? Because our sun, if I were to draw it on this map of the galaxy, hold on, let me use, I know my thing shakes if I don't use my little extended whiteboard here. Here's us, here's the sun, this little orange dot, way over on the outer outskirts of our galaxy. that our little sun star does not live in like the center of the downtown area where all the hustle bustle is in terms of our galaxy. No, we live way out on a rural highway, you know, like on an unpaved road. This is none of this is bad at all. It's only to say that we are far from the galactic supercenter, and that means that signals need to get broadcast from here. Great thinker, that's at that level. Got it? Not time, place, level, into this level of reality, into the sun, then broadcast over to here, into the planetary structure level, then broadcast over to here, here's you, and then broadcast into each cell of your body, and then go on a journey that's tinier and tinier and tinier. So each one of these little sun stars, these little dots that are over here, is analogous to a neuron in a great brain. And that brain itself, the galactic size brain, is analogous to a neuron when we look at the larger structure of interconnectivity of thought between galaxies. And this thought structure is a nonlinear thought structure in terms of time. It is nonlinear and it is non-local. Let me go to my notes and begin sharing this stuff maybe in a more organized fashion. The first thing we need to talk about is a life cycle of a star. And let me also just take care of myself with a little bit of this. Stars are alive. They have a life cycle. Why this is personally significant to you as an experiencer in the human realm is because, well, that's what I'll get into throughout this presentation. Basically, in deep interstellar space, there are these clouds of dust and gas, and these are called nebulae. There are different types of nebulae that, astronomy, our present system of observation, describes. One is the type of a nebula that is full of potential, that hasn't become stuff yet. It is, like I said, a giant cloud that is rather without boundaries in the vast interstellar levels of outer space. And it contains particles of dust, different tiny particles of matter, and particles of gas, so basically different states of matter, both solid and gaseous. And you guys know what cymatics are, right? If you don't, I'll do a very quick recap, but everyone's really smart and well-informed, and you can also check out tons of videos about this. Cymatics, CYMATICS. It means sound as an organizing principle. Hat tip to Patricia and all of the work that we've been doing in terms of vocal toning workshop and humans exploring their sound and using it as an intentional organizing principle. Coherent waves. I spoke about coherent waves. Let's draw it. Draw it. Oh, I just pressed on something. I don't know what happened, but go back to wherever I'm supposed to be. Draw coherent waves. Coherent waves. So here's coherent waves. All of the ups and all of the downs fit together. All of my ups and all of my downs fit together. That can be light waves, making a beam of laser light. Here's laser light going in one direction endlessly, infinitely to infinity. It can also be sound waves. Sound waves can be coherent, meaning that they all fit together. You know what coherent sound waves are? Music. Harmonic, organized sound waves. So cymatics, and since I have this over here, we'll type it out for you because that way you can read it better. Cymatics, organized sound waves that move through these larger superstructures of reality that are known as nebulae. So like here's just a bunch of dots of stuff. And as the coherent sound waves move through that potentiality mixture of dust and gas, it organizes the dust and gas into what becomes stars. This is the birth of a star. So cymatics is if you take like a platform, and you sprinkle upon it a very fine sand baking powder, something like that, very fine powder. And then you vibrate that plate or that form, maybe with like a violin bow or something like that. And you are making this whole platform vibrate. As this vibrates and shakes, you get the most amazing self-organizational patterns showing on the two-dimensional plane. And this has to do with the organizational nature of sound waves creating these beautiful patterns. So in your gestational process of becoming an organized human, you're organized in your gestational process of being born as a human in this physicality structure and being incarnated in flesh and matter. What really happened was the potential of stuff got organized into harmonic structures and became you. You're an organized harmonic structure. You're the potentialities of the pickles, the ice cream, the tacos, the Hawaiian punch that your mother drank when she was pregnant with you. I'm only saying that because I was with my friend once when she was pregnant and those are the things that she wanted to eat. But her baby was the end result of more than just the potentialities of the food that she ate. Her baby is also the end result structurally of highly intelligent and informed, coherent thought forms that move through matter, organizing that matter and causing it to coalesce into a gestational vehicle known as the human body, known as a baby, an infant that is then born from the mother. Stars have a birth as well. So stars, the life cycle starts off as a giant ball of potential, dust and gas that is unorganized. Galactic superwaves. Now let's talk about galactic in scale, meaning not only very long lived. I talked about the life of a fruit fly versus the life of a galaxy, which could be billions of years. The scale of a galactic superwave is big. That's one wave, an up and a down. That is a superwave. It is so big in terms of its wavelength that it's something that would be difficult to perceive even from this eyeball that would be considered our sun in the sky, like a viewpoint of an entire massive sun, because the sun is just one little tiny viewpoint here. It would be very, very difficult even for something that is as massive as a sun star to see a galactic superwave. And they move through here, if I erase this, they move through like this. Here I'm going through this galaxy, now I'm going through this galaxy, now I'm going through this galaxy. They're giant organizational waves. And as they go through these potential nebulae, they organize the dust and the gases. And what happens is, on a consciousness level, cohesion and coherence of consciousness. On a purely materialistic level, the matter and gas and energy begins to come together and starts to organize itself into these complex patterns and is close enough together, kind of like stuck together enough to begin to create these complex chains of events, of chemical and electrochemical, let's call them, cascades of events. And that's how science and astronomers explain and describe accurately, but only on one level of reality, the process of the emitting of energy that begins with the birth of a star. Stars emit light as an end result of all the stuff that's happening in terms of electrochemical chain reactions that are happening inside of them. And that's valid, and those can be measured. Science also does not fly a plane inside of a sun star in order to see all of this. Science uses the ESP of higher calculation math in order to perceive all of this. So again, math can be used as a tool, like your tendril of attention, reaching out, touching on things. You can do that with your pure attenuation, with your attention, with your imagination. You can do that with the subsystem, something like math, which is a way of using calculations and higher math to be able to say, well, if I know A is B, A is true, A is B is true, B is C is true, C is D, A is D, this is this, this relates to this. It's complex chains of logic and association that allows you to be able to see into places that are either too tiny for your eyeballs to see or too giant or too hot to be able to see. So science does a lot of math perception into the areas of what would be considered a giant nuclear furnace, because you can't actually go there with your eyeball and look inside and be like, what's going on in here? How is all this stuff happening? However, it is accurate to say that there are electrochemical chain reactions that are happening that are causing the emission of light and frequency and high energy particles, all of which affects us, all of which can be perceived and measured, and also the stuff that is going on inside of a star. It's kind of like, how you have your physical metabolism and we can measure. Oxygen goes in, carbon dioxide comes out, caloric energy comes out, you emit infrared, and also you emit thoughts, and you emit music, and you think your feelings, and those things are less easily perceived and measured by objective materialist science. Same thing with the sun star. There's stuff going on in terms of consciousness that is less easily perceived and measured, just kind of sloughed under the carpet. We're not going to see that or talk about that, but that stuff is all going on. So I describe each sun as a portal of consciousness and a doorway. Go back, we'll draw it like a little doorway. Now I'm drawing a doorway in the sun. And that doorway, actually, if I draw these kind of dotted lines connecting, the dotted lines connect to this doorway, that means that the doorway opens up to infinity. This is a doorway to infinity. This is a doorway to infinity over here. This is a doorway to infinity. So your consciousness can go into the sun, go through that doorway. That's a doorway to infinity, and then go down this long hallway. Do you get it? But the long hallway is not a long hallway at all. It is like my magical scarf that allows you to fold time and space. So it's not actually a long hallway at all. And that goes as a pathway to infinity. We're talking about pathways to infinity. So light, consciousness, awareness, ideas come from here through the folded. Hold on a second. You gotta mute yourself, girl. I gotta mute you. You gotta mute yourself. Go through this light, consciousness, awareness, pathways, ideas come from this central thinker that is here in the center of the galaxy, the supermassive black hole, the cohesion, coherence, gravitational love object that holds all of us together lovingly. Like imagine a giant, a giant embrace, a positive thing holding all of these sun star consciousnesses together. Consciousness, energy, ideas, thoughts, light. Back to this concept of light. Anytime in my teachings, you can do a fun experiment where whenever you hear me say the word light, you can replace it with the word consciousness or awareness, because that's really what I'm talking about. Light, not just as the light coming from my light bulb. You could see my face, but light that illuminates you with ideas and with intelligence and with data, like information. Light is information, and that is really what is coming to us. That's what these broadcasts are. From the Galactic Supercenter into each one of these individual nodes of perception and communication that we define as individual stars, which each one is an individual portal of consciousness and doorway into infinity, and opening to this larger organizational principle of higher intelligence. And what comes out of the star is more than merely, I joke, dead, stupid photons. The light that is emitted, the photons are part of it. It's also possibilities and probabilities. And every time I draw that little time vortex, as I hop back to my whiteboard, you're very familiar with this at this point in the class. Let's draw it over here, the time vortex, where we've got, the basic membrane of time and that core timeline that goes up through the wormhole and continues onward to infinity. All of these timelines, and even the peripheral timelines, and everything that it's made out of is a broadcast or an emanation from the sun. These orange squiggles, the sun's long hair, that is not just visible light. And it's not even just infrared that keeps us warm. All of these squiggles are time. These are squiggles of timelines, possibilities, and probabilities. Okay, so wait, I want to go in one direction, but I also want to go in another direction. Let me read through my notes before I go in the direction of the journey of light. The entire length of okay. In deep interstellar space, we've got clouds of dust and gas. which become organized by galactic superwaves that move, they propagate through the medium of interstellar time space. Got it? Waves propagate through a medium, meaning like they flow through something. They organize and flow through something. Wavelengths at the size of a galaxy. Wavelength is related to perception. It has to do with time scale. The entire length of the wave, giant galactic superwave, is not even fully visible from the standpoint of a small viewer like you and me, even of a sun star itself. It becomes, the galactic superwave becomes outside the zone of perception. So if there's this big, giant galactic superwave going all the way across here, but you're only seeing this little tiny slice of it where I'm scribbling over here, it is difficult to interpolate, presume the trajectory of everything that has come before and everything that will come after. So it is sometimes difficult to even imagine or conceive of what one is perceiving a tiny slice of. Lifespan rather, and time scale are limiters of consciousness. The example of you versus the fruit fly that lives for 3 days. Part of the challenge of interacting with higher dimensional beings who are enormous in their grandeur is that they live on the scale of a galaxy. So a lot of times people are like, yo, Aurora, where's the good guys? There's lots of good guys. The good guys are all around us. The good guys are part of us. The good guys are literally flowing through us all the time. One of the challenges of interacting with the higher dimensional beings who are very loving and very present and having very much a positive influence on your journey as an individual, tiny microscopic individualized portion of the light body of the larger, the big thing. You're a tiny portion of this giant light body that's up here. Hi, I'm a giant galactic superwave. Hi, I want to positively influence you. Hi, I'm also on a level of grandeur that is so enormous, it is difficult for you to even perceive or conceive of my existence, much less have a conversation with me, just like it can be hard for you as a human to have a conversation with the fruit fly that's moving at such a fast rate in its lifespan that it has difficulty perceiving you. And the moment that you open the garbage can in the morning and they all fly out and you're just putting a banana peel in there, and to them, that might be an epic event that lasts for 40,000 years. You understand what I'm talking about. Challenges and time scale. Hold on, let me just take care of myself here. At the center of every galaxy is a supermassive black hole. That is truthful. And that these super waves are waves of intelligence and an organizing principle acting on a galactic scale. When they hit the dust and gas known as nebulae, the dust and gas begins to organize themselves a la cymatics. This is my recap through my notes of everything that I've got here. Vibrations organizing particles of matter, super waves of organizing principle, intelligence, and thoughts of a much larger being, this whole entire galactic brain up here. These thought organizes potentiality into reality. That's big. These orange broadcasts of possibilities and probabilities are potentialities, potential realities not yet experienced. Thought organizes potentiality into reality. And this has everything to do with these time vortices that I draw and diagram for you all the time in terms of thought structure organizing these time spirals into potentialities and things that you actually experience in terms of the events of your life moment to moment, and whether you're on a periphery over here that ends in the membrane of death, or whether you're on this eternal pathway, figure eight pathway of life, moving endlessly like a particle of light on its journey. Don't worry, I'll get there. And I see there's more questions. Hold on. Thought organizes potentiality into reality. Keep that present in your consciousness as we're going forward. As particles coalesce, they move towards the center, self-organize, achieve a critical mass to begin the process of beginning to emit energy. What we're talking about here are these little, go back to the purple color. Here's dust and gas particles over here. Galactic superwaves are moving through, beginning to vibrate these little particles in terms of cymatics. And what happens is all the particles start to gather together in the middle. they're coalescing, they're coming together. Now all of my little particles are closer and closer and closer to one another, and they start to collect together and to start to form a cohesive whole. At a certain point, that cohesive whole is becoming a star, and it begins to actually emit energy, sending out light, sending out consciousness that comes again from the galactic center, and also sending out time waves, possibilities and probabilities that are then part of our experienced reality. I just want to pause for one moment here, and I'll go back to my face. And I'll say that a big part of this journey, like we're talking about the reciprocal, I give to you, you give to me, not in a quid pro quo type of way, but in a beautiful partnership. Spoiler alert or teaser, you've been ingesting and receiving from the sun and the stars. They give you light, organizational principle, consciousness, awareness, food, sustenance. And at a certain point, in your body, you coalesce enough light and you accrete enough light in your being to then be able to turn the whole journey around, and you emit. For right now, the stuff comes into you, thoughts, ideas, and time. You know, you perceive and ingest and are a part of the time field. Food is coming into you, just like when you were a little baby, your mama fed you, like here's the airplane, I'm putting the applesauce into your mouth, or light waves or whatever it is, you know, breast milk coming into you. And then at a certain point, you become an adult and you can have a baby yourself, and you can do the airplane and give them their little spooned up apricots or whatever it is, or feed them with your breasts. And that is beautiful reciprocation throughout, you know, the development of consciousness. So at a certain point, stars have been feeding you as a little tiny neurological signal within a much, much larger, you know, neurological apparatus. And you receive and receive and receive. Like I go outside and I sit in the sun and I'm like, oh, like I'm ready to receive, like, you know, give it to me, sun. And that beautiful energy comes on my skin, comes into my body, comes into my eyes. And also when I eat my food, I'm like, wow, I'm so blessed. I'm ready to receive this beautiful nourishment and food comes into me, and I receive it. At a certain point in your development, you get to the point where you become a star. You start to emanate with your mind and your consciousness, timelines, possibilities, probabilities, reality structures. You become the emanator of a dream that sustains other beings. You become like the parent of consciousness. And it is a beautiful reciprocation as you have received and been sustained throughout your childhood and development and into adulthood and maturation process. You then are able to turn around to the next generation and be like, now I give to you. Or you can also think of it as being an audience member of this beautiful symphony of life. And the music is, here, I'll play a little music. The music is so amazing. It's flowing over you. It feels so great. It's a big, giant, amazing symphony. And you're in the audience and you're just like, oh, like, this feels amazing. I love hearing all of this music. It's the music of life, the symphony of life. And then at a certain point, you're like, you know something, you learn music theory and you learn how to play the piano, become a genetic virtuoso. And then at a certain point, you join the symphony and you're on the stage and you're playing the music too and emitting along with other people. And then there's a new group of people in the audience that are listening to you and they're like, play it, we love it, it sounds amazing. And you nourish and sustain them. And it's an endless journey. You don't just get stuck on the symphony stage for forever. You're keeping on going. This is also understanding an endless journey upward in galactic scale, an endless journey inward in microscopic scale, endless journey of light and life. You'll keep going. But the point of reciprocation, moving energy, in beautiful partnership, that is what love is. That is truly what love is. So in the human realm, we would define this as receiving love from one's parent. Parents nourish and sustain us, you know, ideally in a pristine world, in whatever challenges people might have faced in their own individual family dynamics, because I recognize that happens too. But ideally in a pristine world, Parents feed their children, feed their offspring, and then you go to maturity and adulthood, and then you have your own children or offspring or those that you nourish and sustain, and you give to the next generation. And then they have their babies and they give to the next generation. This is reciprocal nourishment across time. And we'll get into who's who and what's what, because you're always feeding yourself. That was basically how a star is born. So how is a star born? The organizational structure of dust and gas brings these particles closer and closer together. They achieve enough cohesion and coherence and gravitational stickiness to stick themselves together into a thing, into a wholeness, into an entirety that then is able to achieve not only electrochemical chain reactions and begin to emanate outward, but also to become a coherent portal of consciousness connected to the galactic supercenter. That is a great thinker, a great brain in the sky that is part of a larger superstructure of great brains that are all thinking together and making this amazing, beautiful music. And that supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy speaks to and through the star that then emanates consciousness signals, including the time waves of possibilities and probabilities, into structures such as planetary structures that are known as solar systems. Dun, dun, dun. We live in a solar system. And that's the harmonic chord of like Earth, Mars, Venus, Jupiter. There used to be, there's an asteroid belt, but there used to be a planet there, like all these things. So we've got a solar system that's had some trauma, had some things go out of tune, had some things go cuckoo caca. We've got Earth is tilted. Venus doesn't have a magnetic field. There's problems with its atmosphere. Like there's all these things that are going on with our solar system. But each planetary structure is a child of the star that sustains it. We're in a family of light. There are different levels of density in our solar system. We live in a rock planet, a rocky planet. And it's also like joke rock music, like that Jimi Hendrix song, Third Rock from the Sun. Yes, we live on the third rock from the sun and we rock. I know sometimes I get a little silly, please allow me that. We rock over here and we're made of physical matter. Now we need to describe and talk about the journey of physicality and physical matter and what would happen with light if it just went endlessly on its journey and never interacted with physical matter. But first, let me just finish out my notes and say, what is happening on a subatomic level that is causing light and energy to be emitted when all of these particles come together and it's like, now I'm a star and I'm born and I'm a thing. What is happening? There are electrochemical reactions that are on the level of subatomic particles within this enormous, massive thing that is causing light and energy to be emitted. There are many types of emanations beyond merely the physical light, possibilities, probabilities, and that basically we're talking about pure consciousness. So there are phenomenological emissions such as light and infrared heat and X-rays and neutrinos that come out of the sun. And there's also the sense of the sun as a portal of consciousness. Big emphasis here in my notes, and I sent out my notes on Patreon and I sent it out via the email. Even I put them out on Facebook now because I think some people really gain a lot from that. Stars as living beings with conception, a lifespan, and then a death. And we'll talk about those three levels of being. So there's the conception, I talked a lot about that. Stars coming together to the point that they actually emit light. The lifespan is the amount of time that a star is able to sustain the balance of forces of intake versus output. That is called homeostasis or metabolism. So in your own body, you have to have an intake of breath and then an output of breath. I'm breathing in oxygen, I'm breathing out carbon dioxide. We have to have a balance of these two things. You sometimes see me pause and I'm like, wait, I need to breathe in more. I'm doing a lot of talking, I'm breathing out a lot. I'm like, wait, I need to breathe in more. I need to remain my homeostasis and be in balance. Same thing with water. You know how this goes. We learned this when we were little children. Water comes in here and then water comes out later through other orifices. This is important stuff. And water also comes out as sweat from our body. Everything, we're in a state of metabolic homeostasis. We have to keep a certain amount of water inside of ourselves. If I don't drink more water all the time and water just comes out of me, then what happens, guys? You become dehydrated, you shrivel up like a raisin and you die. You die because you had more come out of you than go into you. And of course, like if you had endless water go into you and never come out of you, what would happen? You'd be like whatever, like a giant balloon or something like that, you know, super, I can't even imagine an analogy for it, but yes, that would also lead to your eventual death. That is not in balance. So what you need to do is have a balance of metabolism, and stars have a balance of metabolism. Their balance is between their their emission, the energy or wind, like it literally has a force, like whoosh, I'm blowing away from me stuff, and the gravity that they pull inward towards them. Stars have a balance of pushing and pulling. I'm pushing stuff out away from me. Maybe that's a good way of putting it. Like, like I'm a mime, guys. I'm a mime. I'm in a box. I'm joking. I'm a star and I'm pushing stuff away from me, and I'm pushing light away from me, neutrinos, consciousness, and just the time pressure of the pressure of time. I'm pushing time away from me. I'm sending it out. My muscles are tensed. And you know what else I'm doing? I'm doing bicep exercises. I'm pulling stuff inwards towards me. That's gravity. Stars have a balance and metabolism of these two things that they're doing. Sending out stuff. I'm sending out stuff. I'm thinking. I'm sending out stuff. I'm singing. Ah! And I'm also being a gravitational cohesion, love force of drawing inward towards me and doing all of that, you know, bicep type of work. I'm bringing it in towards me. And for the lifespan, in order for a star to maintain its lifespan, what it needs to do is have a balance of forces, a homeostasis or metabolism between sending out and drawing in. And that stars have a limited lifespan in this world right now, as it is defined by our physical presence and our physical perception. Things are different in other levels of reality. So understand that's where I'm coming from on this, but just like we right now are mortals that have a birth, a continuation, and then an end, so too does a sun star in the sky birth the coalescence of what it is, continuation, the emission of light versus the balance of gravity. And then at a certain point, light does not emanate outward. And what you have still remaining is the huge gravitational drawing inward force. And that is the giant bowling ball of consciousness. The balance that all of this stuff that I've been pushing out away from me as a star, all of my ideas and thoughts and time pressure, pushing all of this stuff out as my metabolism diminishes, then all of that time pressure starts to come back in. That is gravity coming into itself. And now I begin to curl up in a ball and I backflip into myself. Like imagine I'm a gymnast, I'm curled up like a ball and backflipping into myself. That is a black hole. And science, again, describes this, or objective materialism describes this as, quote unquote, the death of a star, but it is really a node on the journey of consciousness. Just as I described in the lesson, How to Die Well, and the ideas of ancient Egypt and crossing the Duat, and the Tibetan Bardo, Book of the Dead, the idea that your death is not the end of who you are, but you just have to identify with the eternal aspect of self on journey. Death as a node, consciousness portal, coming of age, rite of passage, where you transform in state or metamorphose, changing state of, into a different level of being and go in a different direction in terms of consciousness. That the star has its own giant galactic scale of lifespan where it's doing all this stuff and playing all this music and making all this stuff happen in time, and then it stops and it all reverses. Now we're going backwards. Now we're drawing it all back in, like sending out these big long fishing lines, like the way that people do like in a river, that you know, that type of trout fishing where they send out a big long fishing line and then draw it all back in, drawing it all back in. That's what that sense of becoming a black hole is. But it is not an end of the journey at all. In fact, when you start to, where's my magical fabric of the cosmos, when you begin to stretch the infinitely stretchy fabric of the cosmos and you're starting to stretch it down, 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 or in, it never stops. And what you end up having is the endless or infinite, undefined in terms of end, journey of consciousness coming inward to the portal, the doorway, that is the sun star, that is, of course, connected to the galactic supercenter, that is connected to an even larger central broadcasting system, the BBC of the even greater level, I'm joking about these broadcasting corporations, but like the organizer, the conductor, the maker of this great music, goes even inward, even further, goes inward, even further, further. And now I brought you to that point, like pulled back, we're in the giant time scale. Yes, not an end of the journey at all, but a node of rite of passage, of transformative experience. So the star emits. Then at a certain point, there's no more emission. And then there is the star turning around, flipping back into itself, all of these time structures coming back in to the star presence, into the doorway of infinity, into the next dimension, basically, is where it goes. The journey doesn't end. It's not like, oh, it just goes inward and then like it's kaput, it's done. It's not like that. It's a very simplistic, one-dimensional, maybe not one-dimensional, maybe two-dimensional looking at the world, but we're looking at a multi-dimensional consciousness presence that is on its journey. The actual lifespan of the star has everything to do with your daily life. You are intimately intertwined with the stars in general and with your nearest star, the sun. What's going on with the sun is absolutely intertwined with, at every moment, quantum entangled with. You as an experiencer in your individuated, incarnated, human, fleshy, mostly water body. Wait, I'm putting stuff into my body for my metabolism because I'm sending out so much, I need to put stuff in. Hold on a second. Thank you for understanding. I have to maintain homeostasis, guys. I don't want to die. And I'm joking and very lighthearted, you can tell. Because we're talking about some heavy stuff here. But I never want you to think that I'm an idiot, like, haha, things die. Like, no, not at all. This is actually a very deep conversation, but I don't think that death is something that we should fear, but grief and suffering are very real, including the sense of stars that die. But let me also tell you this, when stars die, do you know what happens? Beyond the stretching of the fabric of time, space, and consciousness into an infinitely stretched time plane that is known as a black hole and perceived by science, you also have sometimes these explosive nebulae, where all the stuff that's out here kind of goes crashes in, like when they do a building implosion, through controlled demolition. Selective explosive charges are placed all throughout like a concrete structure, and you press the TNT, the detonators go off, and the whole entire thing goes kapow and collapses in on itself. And in that moment of star collapsing in on itself, amazing things happen, including the creation of matter and star stuff in the atomic furnace, quote unquote atomic furnace. It's called a forge instead of a furnace, but not forge like something that is fake, but a forge like they create iron, like you're gonna hit something, you hit the hammer and the anvil together and it forges a sword, it forges metal, it makes it strong. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Everything that you are, everything that you have right now is borrowed and perceived and received from stars. Some of the very matter of your body that you have is not from this particular alive star that is in our sky right now, but comes as the end result of the controlled demolition, death of a star, that all of this stuff crashed together, made these amazing amalgamations of atoms and molecules. Let me just mute you, my dear, just for the sake of our recording. Mushed together in order to create something like calcium that is in your body right now. So there begins to be seen a necessity, the acceptance when I talk about the love tone, and having a strong foundation and a plateau of love on which all this insight and this journey is able to be perceived. When you really get to these higher levels of galactic perception, you're not like, oh, my star died, I'm feeling so sad, even though, of course, we would grieve the loss of something that has a limited lifespan, but you also see out of the death of that star has come all of these atomic elements or pure pigments for the next painting that we will make, the next painting of reality, that then are spread outward into different places in physical reality, that then end up becoming literally a part of your own body, calcium in your own body, and some of these other elements that could only have been created through the forge, the heavy gravitational smashing together of stuffliness in the world, and then it becomes stuff. Let's talk about matter and what matter is. Matter is condensed and solidified light. Let me draw. Go to the whiteboard here. Light is non-physical or semi-physical. Here's a bunch of light going off. Let me just do a different color. Here's some orange light going off from a sun star infinitely in this direction. If it doesn't hit any matter or do anything, it will simply continue going on its waveform journey, like a big, giant, long beam of light or a laser that just goes, 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 goes. Let's say that it hits and meets an object. I'm gonna just get an object color. That beam of light is going to hit this thing. Here's like a square of somethingness. And instead of going off into its journey endlessly and forever, it hits a thing and it has an interaction with that thing. The thing itself is a solidified thing that is light, that is slowed down on its journey. So if we didn't have any matter, all that we would have is waveforms. Here's waveform, 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 waveform. P.S. guys, that's what the world is like where I come from. A whole bunch of waveforms, and not necessarily a place of slowed down waveforms making matter. So what we would have in our world, what we've got right now, here's waveform, 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 and then here's an ice cube. You know, you've got like a drink with liquid waveform. Then you've also got here is a solid ice cube. These are matter that we deal with, that we interact with. So like most of us, you're sitting down in a chair. I'm sitting in a chair. My butt is on some matter. I'm sitting on an ice cube. I'm on a floor. My chair is on a floor. I'm on an ice cube. I'm not just in this waveform reality. I'm experiencing matter. There's nothing wrong with this. It's the level of reality that we are in. What is matter? Matter is slowed down and condensed light. So this green object here was once a whole bunch of green potentiality waveforms that were waveforming along, and they coalesced into this thing here that is a giant, let's call it a sphere, like a ball of matter. And then now I'm going to draw the area out behind it where the waveforms did not go. This is the shadow area. And I'm going to draw it the way we do in art school. Like here is the shadow of that light. You get it? The area of existence where the light does not fall. And you can kind of see, even though this is a very, very scratchy little drawing, but if you draw things properly, it makes it look as if that is an actual object that is sitting down on a thing. It's on a plane, like it's got a presence to it, because when we start to add shadow and shading to our line drawings, our perception that we've learned from art school makes it so that we begin to interpret this as an object that has shape and form. And definitely in our viewing of the world with our physical eyeballs, most of us that are visually present, looking at the world and creating a picture of the world, we look at things through contrast. Like, you know, here's a person, here's their face, and then there's the dark hair or the wall behind them. And you're like, oh, look, there's a contrast between the person and the stuff that's around them. And that's how we begin to build a picture of reality. And like, oh, like there's kind of like, there's a dark area over here, and there's a dark area over here, and there's a dark area over here. And then we start to be like, oh, like that's no eyes, nose, and a mouth. Like we start to build a sense of the figure of who is there based on the shadows. I know, very hard for me to work with these, but you know, I'm trying to draw like a little bit of a sense of what is there. I'm trying to talk about my pen. My computer pen is very difficult to control, so I'm usually pretty good at drawing faces. In sacred shadow work, wait, I'll go to my face. This has to do with light, consciousness, awareness, and stuff that is supposed to be on its journey. I am a light being, I've come here, I've solidified, here's my face, I'm a giant coherent light being, I'm formed out of light. And then here is the whole implied area over here, the area of implication that the light did not go. If I was not here, that light would have just gone on on its journey all the way through this area over here. Because I am here, that light came and fell upon me. Some of it became incorporated into me as infrared Like, oh, I felt that sunlight go on my body and it gave me a warm sensation. That's infrared light. Some of it fell into me in the sense of going into my eyeballs. Like right now, you can see on my wall behind me here, there's a pretty bright reflection from the sun in the sky that is reflecting off of the shiny surface of my paintings into my eyeball. Literally, light is coming from the galactic supercenter through the folding of space, time, and consciousness into the portal that is inside of the sun, being emitted through light waves and possibilities and probabilities into the visual light spectrum that is then coming in through my window, bouncing off of my paintings and coming inside through the little tiny apertures, the pupils of my eyes, and coming inside of me and going into my retinas and then going into my whole visual cortex and going into my whole occipital lobe. I'm eating that light with my eyes. I'm doing that with everything that's around here, bouncing. The light is bouncing off of physical objects. So I have to mute you. There we go, dear. The light is bouncing off of physical objects. It is interacting with solidified, slowed down matter, slowed down light known as matter, and coming inside of me. And once that light comes inside of me, that light is no longer going on its journey. That light is aware. It is conscious. It's like, hi, I'm a little light bulb. I'm a little photon. I'm flying off of the sun. I'm flying through space. I'm flying through interstellar space. Boom. All of a sudden, I'm bouncing off of the surface of a painting and bouncing into this lady's eye. Like that is a very different experience than just continuing on my cosmic journey of consciousness. And now that that light is inside of me, it is translated into the biochemical thing that we call a neurological signal. The light is in my nerve structure of my body. It's in my brain. It's in my consciousness. It's in the signals that are going from my eyeballs through my optic nerve into my brain. And it is partially a light signal, like an electric signal, like the electrons that flow in my light bulb. That's partially what your neurology is like, but also partially a biochemical signal that you have biochemistry that also carries signals. Wait, I lost some of my lighting over here. Biochemical signals that begin to help signals to go across synapses and things like that. Synapses are where nerves come together and a signal goes, go, 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 go. Wait, I'm going to reach a dead end. I got to do something. I got to jump. How does it jump? It gets translated into biochemical signals, neurotransmitters, and the neurotransmitters transmit the signal from this level of the synapse over to this level of the synapse, jumping across the Grand Canyon. The nerve signal has to jump across the Grand Canyon by becoming a biochemical signal. Then it goes to this nerve, and then it keeps going along here. Keep that in mind, that jump across the Grand Canyon. The translation into biochemistry from neurological electro signal. It's an electrochemical event. This has everything to do with how signals transmit from star to star, from galaxy to galaxy, and how you make the leap of consciousness upon the moment of your death or ascension, the transition and metamorphosis from one state of being or stratum of reality into the next level or stratum of reality. You have that I am God moment inside of you all the time. These little neurons are having these jumps where they're jumping and they're remembering that they are God. I am God, I jump across. I am God, I jump across. I am God, I jump across. You'll do it too with the superstructure known as your life. When you end up getting to that moment, you're like, go here. Here's you. You're going along in your life. And then you get to here. And then at a certain point, you're going to jump off into the next level of reality, to the next neuron structure, and keep going in time. And you will have that moment. That's like the aha, I am God. And you jump into the next level of being. Okay, I know that's far in, that was a teaser, a spoiler alert from lessons that are down the road in the semester. Oh, I'll answer. Aaron, as I'm drinking, I'm reading your question. Aaron has a beautiful question. I will get to you. Yes, thank you. Thank you for all of your good thoughts. Thank you. I'm just referring to my notes to make sure that I'm getting everything that's important. The chain reaction of biochemical, electrochemical signals inside of a star is not able to be maintained indefinitely. It has a metabolism, and that metabolism is not sustained for an endless amount of time. And when it ends and the star collapses into itself, the outward emanations that once went outward begin to shrink back and inside and to be drawn back in like a fishing line, and the infinitely stretchy fabric and the infinitely heavy bowling ball stretch it ever inward. The energy collapses back inward. This is the death of a star. Science looks at death as the end of consciousness, but in this class, we look at death as a portal and the next direction through which you will go on your infinite journey of light and of consciousness. The black hole is an infinite vortex with energy infinitely traveling into its center, infinitely having bowling ball going in there, the end of the life cycle of a star, but not the end of the journey of consciousness. And stars emanate, but black holes suck or draw energy in. That's why our science definition defines them as black holes, because in the perceiving of light, you're like, well, I got plenty of light over here, plenty of light over here, and then over here, like in front of my face, nothing, blackness. And it's because here there's a giant vortex of drawing everything inward. Light does not escape, nor does electromagnetism or any other signals of consciousness, because everything is going ever inward. So they call it a black hole, or an area of there's nothing to observe there. There's nothingness. Black holes are also sometimes called a gravitational lens, because it's such a super heavy gravitational thing that is drawing everything in. It kind of bends and warps time-space around it. So you have a giant nothingness here, but then you also have around it kind of like a wibble warble, like when you have bubbly glass, that it makes everything around it look a little different. The infinite journey inward is towards the singularity. Hugely gravitational object stretching the fabric of time, space, and consciousness into a singularity point, a la my magical stretchy scarf. You have the same singularity at the center of all of your chakras or energy centers, a la my paintings that I show you all the time. Many doorways all lead to the same room, the room of infinity. This is all an infinite journey of consciousness, a very positive infinite journey of consciousness, not something where it's like the running on the hamster wheel or getting nowhere, or any kind of thing like that. This is a very positive sustenance and perpetual motion machine. And I have to contrast that because I know that I'm speaking to many, I don't want to say that word, I want to say experiencers or survivors of some negative patterning that makes you feel like, oh, I'm going in loops, I'm running on a hamster wheel, I'm never going to get out of here. No, it's not like that at all. It is a sense of a very positive, perpetual motion machine of consciousness that we find ourselves within, that we want to sustain. You don't want to TNT blow this thing up and be like, get me out of here, like kapow, like a prison. This is not a prison. This is a very positive, perpetual motion machine that you wish to be a part of. We are on a journey of light, or a journey of consciousness. We are exiting one time cone, means we enter the next time cone and begin the refinery process of the next level of subtlety. Let me draw this for you. This is what I was just talking about. Neurons jumping across the Grand Canyon, or what happens when you die. Let's choose a color. You go from one level of the time vortex, like this. Figure out which of these multiplicity bundles of timelines is actually the central core timeline that I'm drawing here like this. When you get through that wormhole, that is not the end of your journey. What happens is you find yourself at the periphery of the next time vortex. And from there, you then begin to explore spiraling upward through this refinery of consciousness until you become aligned with this central core timeline, that then, of course, is not the end, but is just the beginning of the next, of the next, of the next, of the next. I'm not switching colors on all of this because it's going to take all day, but you recognize that you are not on a journey that ends. The infinite journey is the infinite journey of going closer and closer and closer to infinity. Just like you can say, well, what if I measure the distance between where I am now and the wall? Whatever, it's 10 feet. Well, then I'm going to take it in half, 5 feet, then take it in half, 2.5 feet, then half of that, 1.25 feet, then half of that, 0.75 feet, then half of that, and half of that, and half of that, until we're getting down to like 1 centimeter, half a centimeter, 1/4 of a centimeter, a tiny millimeter, then half a millimeter, then smaller and smaller and smaller. That's what we keep on doing in time, in the journey of consciousness. The refinery process of you as a journeyer. Like, you know, I use this in the sense of you're being slightly askew, or you are refining your consciousness journey and you're becoming closer and closer and closer to that infinite, eternal core persona. P.S. The sun and stars have an infinite, eternal core persona, and the galaxy itself has an infinite, eternal core persona that is known as the ascended master persona of the galaxy itself, that it is spiraling towards that central core position of alignment on its journey and is part of a larger structure. It never ends. So big spoiler alert here, your individual journey as an ascended master, you're going from slanty into being perfectly aligned with infinity. But that's not the end of who and what you are. You continue when you exit this wormhole into the next level of reality, where you then learn to get even more closely aligned, even more closely aligned. The galaxy itself, herself, himself, oneself, the galaxy itself is coming into alignment with its own mastery. And your journey as an individuated cell or neuron or neurotransmitter within this larger superstructure is part of the journey of the galaxy achieving mastery. Your awakening, your path of freedom, your journey out of a sense of like, things are out of my control and I don't know what the F is happening, into being like, I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, I know that I'm God. Wait a minute, dun, dun, I have that moment, I am God, and I know where I am, and I know where I'm going, and I know what I'm doing, is analogous to and coherent with the journey of the planet, the journey of the solar system, the journey of the star, the journey of the many stars put together into a galaxy, the journey of the many galaxies put together into beautiful music that is part of a symphony, that knows what it is, what it's doing, where it's going, that recognizes its own divinity, that is the mastery of something that is a being, that is the time field itself. I wanted to say it's an animal that it's so big we can't even describe what it is and what would we call it, what would I name it? And I was about to say it was an unnameable, I don't even know what it is, but it's an animal that I would call time itself, time and divinity and God itself becoming perfected and divine on its journey. I already told you this part. When in any of my teachings, you can replace the word light with consciousness or awareness. Light is synonymous with consciousness. These are the same thing. So if I say, you're on a journey of light, light is on a journey. Light is on a journey of refinement. I'm also saying consciousness is on a journey of refinement. If I say stars emit light, I'm also saying stars emit consciousness. If I'm saying you are made of light or have a light body, I'm also saying you are made of consciousness and have a consciousness body. All right, everything we do and experience here, we do with borrowed sunlight. Why do I call it borrowed? Because it is literally a resource or something that you have only for a limited or brief amount of time, and it's something that comes to you and you hold in trust. Like when you borrow some money from me, giving it to you, but you don't hold it or keep it for forever. You're holding it in trust for me, and then eventually you return it to me. We are made of light, we are made of consciousness, and we are holding it in trust for and from the ones who emanated it to us, for us, so that we can be sustained. The sun, the stars, the larger galactic superstructure is emanating consciousness and light to us so that we can be alive. We are doing everything on borrowed sunlight. Everything from the atomic elements that make up our physical matter presence, even to that are forged in these, controlled demolitions known as the death of stars. Matter in that sense, even in the sense of matter being slowed down light that would have been moving at the speed of light. Your body would have been moving at the speed of light, but it's not moving at the speed of light. It's moving at the speed of matter, which is slower than the speed of light. And when I say the speed of light, talking about the speed of consciousness. How fast is consciousness moving? And you have light that is slowed down into the form of matter that you're using for the time that you are an individuated matter being. And then at a certain point, you are broadcasting all of this light, consciousness, awareness, matter, and everything that you've ever eaten and ingested all of the particles of light that have ever bounced off of a painting and come in through your eyeball and become a neurological signal, that is all being borrowed. Like when you borrow something from the library. A big part of what you're doing is saying, like, I'm going to take this book out. Book is a community resource. I'm going to read from this. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to treat it well. I'm not going to get any coffee or tea stains on my book. Then I'm going to send it back to the library. Same thing with light, consciousness, awareness. This light is flowing to me. It is flowing through me. It is energy. It is thought. It is awareness. I'm using it. I'm holding it in trust for a larger superstructure. I'm learning from it. And then I return my borrowed books to the library at a certain point. That's not necessarily death, even though it is often presented in that way, because many people do a big giant recording of their whole life without doing any live streams or real-time broadcasts. And then at the moment of death, give back to the sun and the stars, like, here is the recorded hard drive, quote unquote, or book of my life. Here's everything. And the sun and the stars are like, that is very nice. Thank you for giving that to me. But I wish I had known about all of this stuff while it was going on, because I could have changed and shifted and done a rectification event so that you didn't have to die and you didn't have to hit the membrane of death. Not that there's anything wrong with dying or hitting the membrane of death. You're not a bad person. Doesn't make you into an evil or wrong person at all. I don't want to ever mischaracterize that. It just means that the sun is an incredibly caring cosmic parent that cares about its offspring or art projects. You are a cosmic art project, and the sun cares about you in the same way that I'm a painter. I care about my paintings. Or if you're a gardener, you care about your garden. Or even a musician, like, I care about my songs. I care that they're out there, that the recordings are held, in existence, that they're not erased out of existence. The sun and the stars and the Galactic Supercenter care about you as cosmic parents and actually don't want you to die. So if you are able to do these real-time broadcasts in the moment and stay quantumly connected to the sun and the stars as your origins, with whom you are quantumly entangled in the moment, bending and folding time space. There's no time and space between you. It does not take 8 minutes to reach the sun. It takes 0 minutes to reach the sun. It's not 93 million miles away. It's right here. It's inside of you. The light is right here inside of you. So if you can talk to the sun right now and you could be like, I'm about to hit a brick wall, like, help me, something's going to happen. The sun is like, oh, wait, you're about to die. Something needs to happen. Let me emanate a new reality structure, so that you don't have to die. You don't have to hit the membrane of death. You don't have to have all of that, go game over, try again, and then going back to the beginning. It changes everything to be in a direct communication partnership with the sun. Hold on, let me drink a little bit more. But I never want to mischaracterize you or anyone who dies as being like, now Aurora thinks I'm a failure. Like, no, please don't look at it in that way. And I'm being lighthearted and silly, but death is profound, and the death journey is profound, and I don't want you to have my voice echoing with you upon your journey and your exit to be like, oh no, like I've done something wrong, or I'm going to become whatever, consciousness residue and be stuck there forever. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Just as I'm talking to you about the journey of death as a portal of consciousness, and that you do continue on your journey. But the idea is that when you go into a black hole, when the sun and all of that energy collapses back in on itself and goes into a black hole, where does it go? It ends up coming out the other side, or coming into another level of reality that is the birth of a new star. Got it? Like, you go through one of those portals, out of a time vortex, into the next layer of a time vortex, where you are then born as a new consciousness, born as a new individuated being, where then you begin the refinery process again. It's a beautiful rebirth scenario. Again, contrasted with the sense of hamster wheel victimhood of the endless cycles through the washing machine here, where people might not want to do the hamster wheel again, but this is a beautiful, eternal journey, not cruelty hamster wheel. Big contrast there. Matter is slowed down sunlight. Everything we do with borrowed sunlight, including having a body, having a physical presence. Matter is slowed down sunlight. Light that is not moving at the speed of light. And the speed of light, these are initials, speed, S-O-O, of light, light, S-O-L, sol. Solar, sol and solar, the speed of light. It's a beautiful acronym for what is going on. Of course, light and information can move faster than the speed of light. So the idea of the speed of light is like, it takes 8 minutes for this light wave to go from the sun all the way here to the surface of Earth. Or it takes 93 million years for this light from this far distant star over here to go all the way across the surface of vast interstellar space and then finally get to us. So in a linear sense, when you were looking at the night sky, you were looking at a snapshot of a time that is an ancient time. By the time the stars emanate that light and it gets to you out here on the rural dirt road known as this solar system, it has taken many, many millions of years to actually reach you and reach your eyeball. The entire contextual presence of that star might have changed. It might be emitting a different type of light. It might no longer be in existence. We're talking now about vast timescales and the difficulties of communication. If you're only linear, if you are nonlinear, and you are folding the magical scarf of space-time and consciousness, or you are lasagnaing, folding it with your DNA structure, you are able to talk to anything, anyone, anywhen, anywhere by folding these beautiful folds and in intricacies in the fabric of time, so that you can have a real-time conversation between yourself and something that lived millions of years ago or will be present in millions of years without having to go through the linear time space of a signal like a radar wave or a light wave going across vast interstellar spaces. That is the difference between understanding the speed of light and representing it as the upper limitation of how fast something can move. So when I talk to you about these galactic levels of consciousness, and the music that is played between galaxies, let me use purple as this color so that I'm consistent. This signal goes from this galaxy to this galaxy to this galaxy, but it doesn't go in a linear sense. It doesn't take 93 million, billion, trillion years for that signal to get there. We're folding the fabric of time, space, and consciousness so that it is an instantaneous communication and communion and community between all of these levels of being here. And then what you have is basically the understanding that galaxies talk to each other through a higher dimensional space. Where I'm making this bounce or this loop is a higher dimensional space, where I'm folding this fabric. Every time I fold this fabric, I'm taking a 2-dimensional object and folding it into a 3-dimensional space. I'm adding a higher dimensional space, 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 adding a higher dimensional space. The real neurological signals that are going on the galactic level are communicating to each other through a higher dimensional space and are not limited by the speed of light. Brief pause there, back to it. Speed of light not as being a linear limiter of the level of consciousness and the speed of consciousness that we can actually achieve in, let's say, achieving these neurological signals from the central brain of this larger time animal and the extremities. Your big toe, here's my big toe. My big toe, what, can I get it up there? All the way up into the camera. My big toe, you can't see it. All the way down at the end of my extremity, that would be like us out here in the solar system. And then there is the galactic supercenter, where it's like the brain and all downtown hustle bustle is happening there, but we're out in the periphery. How do we get our signals there? How do we get them there? Not according to the speed of light, but folding time, space, and consciousness so that you can speak to there immediately. Because otherwise, by the time a signal came from the central galactic super intelligent being in the epicenter there, might say to something like, hey, move your big toe. And if it would take 1 trillion years for that signal to get out to us, it would no longer be relevant. Be like, oh, I just got the signal, I got to move my big toe. And it's like, no, this is no longer relevant. It would be like if it took 10 years to move your big toe. We would consider that to be a neurological damage or some kind of a problem in your body, a paralysis. So what you have to do is fold time, space, and consciousness so that you get these signals instantaneously in no time. The higher dimensional reality bypasses time as a linear feature. You get it in no time, okay? The journey of light. So matter is light that has coalesced. Matter is light that is going slower than the speed of light. There is something that is faster than the speed of light, and that has to do with non-linear folding of time and space type of consciousness. The journey of light. Light does not experience friction. If it does not meet or interact with an object, it goes endlessly on its journey. I'm light, I'm going along endlessly. And when I talk about the endless perpetual motion machine of consciousness, remember, light is consciousness, light is consciousness, consciousness is light. These two things are both the same. Consciousness does not experience friction. You as a journey of consciousness would be endlessly flowing like a wave in figure eights all the way around on this amazing time animal superstructure, going all the way around, never stopping, never ending, never losing energy through entropy, which is what friction is. In our physical world, surfaces rubbing together, and I lose a little bit of energy every time my surfaces rub together. When light or consciousness flows, it does not experience friction. It would continue onward endlessly if not interacting with matter. Light is consciousness, consciousness is light. Light consciousness goes on its endless, frictionless journey unless it interacts with matter. Hello, everyone. What are you made of? You're made of matter. You're made of light and consciousness that's flowing through matter. So that light and consciousness slows down as it experiences the friction of interacting with matter. Let's talk about photosynthesis. I know I'm heading up on the 1 o'clock, which means we're almost at our 2-hour mark. As usual, I'm going into overtime. We do this every time, but there's so much to get through. Photosynthesis means light comes from the sun star. This nourishment and consciousness possibilities and probabilities come to a leaf. Leaves are literally miracle workers. When you see a plant outside, it's performing miracles. Even a blade of grass that's so simple in terms of its cellular structure is performing literal miracles, magic, supernatural abilities. What it's doing is translating something that is non-tangible, that is non-physical, that is pure light, pure consciousness, into something that is a physicality structure. And it does that through photosynthesis, light making, photosynthesis. I take light and I make it into stuff. That is what plants do. They're amazing. They're miracle workers right there, right outside, and you're like walking on top of them with your foot. Light hits a leaf and it interacts with that leaf. Light does not go on its infinite journey. You could say it gets captured by the leaf, or it is absorbed or ingested by the leaf, and then it becomes part of the sustenance cycle, the life cycle of our planet. If that light didn't hit the leaf, it would have continued onward in this direction, infinitely flying to another area of time space, but it didn't. It hit a leaf. It became translated into physical matter by that leaf, and then that became part of the chain of life, the life cycle of sustaining life in this world. And it can be something simple like algae. Algae catches light, it photosynthesizes, it makes algae, and other organisms eat the algae, and then it becomes a rock shrimp, and then it becomes a whale, and something else eats this, and something else eats this. You get it? It can become a piece of food like a salad leaf, and then a human eats it. It can become a leaf and a chicken eats it, and then you eat the chicken. It becomes part of the life cycle. Light not only bounces off paintings and comes into my eyeballs and becomes neurological signals and then bounces all around me, light also becomes food sustenance here. If we didn't have light, we wouldn't be alive. If we didn't have light, we wouldn't be able to sustain life here. Light is a most amazing gift that we're being given. It is all borrowed. It gets made into things like salad and chicken and algae, and then we eat them. And then what do we do with them? I did this in an earlier level lesson. We refine that sensory experience from the analog experience of having taste buds and feeling it all in your mouth and mashing it up with your teeth crystals and putting it into the cauldron of your belly and fermenting it into stuff that you can actually metabolize. And you turn it into the digital signal, not in a transhumanist sense, but in the sense of translating it into a pure signal. Like a digital signal is ones and zeros. It's just the story of something, as opposed to the actual vibratory frequency of that thing, which is what an analog experience is. You translate it into a transmissible substance that can go across. That's what I mean by digital. So you have to have, how do you transmit information? You have to translate it. You get it? Like if you have a hamburger or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how do you transmit it back to the sun? You have to turn it into a transmissible resource like a series of ones and zeros. That's what digital means, but I'm not talking about something that is part of transhumanism or the computer world. I'm talking about translating it into pure consciousness, which is what you do with the refinery of your body. If I go super fast, because I'm going to try to get a lot of information into the rest of the class now, super fast, into your chakra system. And big recap here, taking a signal that is at the level of red, a stimulus of your physicality structure, up through your emotions, up through your intellect, up through the clearinghouse of your heart, up through your throat chakra where it is clothed or unclothed with communication vessels known as language and phonetic symbols, up through the eye of insight where there is pure insight that is not linguistic, and out through your crown and back upward towards the center of white light that is at the center of the sun, at the center of the galaxy, at the center of the larger neurological superstructure. You broadcast your experience of eating your lunch back to the place that emanated your lunch to you. That's our job. And eating food and doing it in this mindful way is a revolutionary act. Turn off the TV and don't read a book and don't do other things that are distractive, because be focused completely on the moment now. It's one of the most amazing acts you can do as a warrior of love. Be like, I'm going to eat this food, whatever it is, and I'm going to feel it in the moment now. I'm going to feel it on my tongue and my taste buds. I'm going to feel what it feels like to swallow it down. I'm going to taste all of that. I'm turning that into a neurological signal that you can then broadcast back to the sun. Yes, because you can't actually send the chocolate cookie to the sun, put it in an envelope and send it on a spaceship back there. That's not how you do it. That would be sending the analog experience of what it is. What you do is you turn that experience through the apparatus of who and what you are into a digital signal that you can broadcast back to the sun. And through quantum entanglement, the sun receives your signal and you are thinking back. You're the big toe sending back the signal back to the sun and the rest of the stars that are in the band and the rest of the symphony of life. Here's your experience. And it's like, what a delicious chocolate cookie you ate, or persimmon cake, or whatever types of food. It's lunchtime, I'm definitely hungry. Whatever type of food you're eating, but it's all borrowed. You get it? The calcium in your bones that you use to animate your skeletal structure and have the experience of having light enter into your neurology and eating food and eating peanut butter and jelly. It's all borrowed from the library of light and consciousness. And you use this experience in order to have experiences and send back the stimuli back to the sun and the stars. And the sun and the stars are like, that is good. That is good stuff. But also sometimes you get signals sent to the sun and stars where they're like, so I am stubbing my toe on a coffee table. Something is not okay, which is also a sacred duty to tell the sun and the stars, there is a danger here, a peril here, an object here. There's a something here. There's you want to avoid, or something is hurting me here. That's also hugely important to be able to share. The sun is literally a great brain in the sky. It is literally a great thinker, a great thought being. Being closest to our planet, we hear it the loudest because it is the closest. It's like the loudest voice in a choir. It is the nearest broadcaster from the center of the galaxy, the galactic supermassive center of intelligence. The galactic center is the center of awareness of the entire organism of the galaxy. And the organism of the galaxy is but a smaller substructure within a much larger time animal superstructure. Each star is a cell in a great brain, or points of consciousness within a much larger organism. The organism whose lifespan is so long that it is difficult for humans to even conceive of its existence. You are a life within a very great being that is alive. So your whole entire life from birth to death or ascension is a substructure within a much larger being that is alive. The central galactic consciousness broadcasts through each star of the stellar network. So again, not only our star, Sol, I'm pointing at him, he's up there in the sky. He, she, it, they are up there in the sky. All of the sun stars are points of consciousness. They are all family members, siblings, brothers, sisters, related cousins. The great central thinker sends out its thoughts through each star portal, each of which has its own unique character or personality, its own unique light recipe or light signature. Yes, from, we call it the visible light spectrum. So Sol has the yellow-green light, but there are others that have more of a blue-white light. And they're all different signatures of light, like different tones of voices. Some are high, some are low. They're all just different and unique. The sun star as the forge, I talked about this. Atomic forge, forging like metal, with which all the elements of your body come from. You're an emanation or an offspring of the sun. You're a child of the sun is your parent, literally. That also means the sun thinks you into being. You're an emanation. You're made of the consciousness of the sun. Light equals consciousness. Consciousness equals light. You're made of the light of the sun. Your neural impulses are made of sunlight. Literally, you have sunlight flowing through your nerves and your mind and your brain. The sun knows what you're thinking and experiencing. Well, of course, that seems like a duh. Well, duh, of course. If I'm the sun and my light is flowing through you as your neurological signals, of course I know what you're thinking. Of course I know what you're thinking and feeling. I know what it feels like for you to be that person sitting there, on your couch or in your chair, looking at a screen, listening to Aurora's voice. I know what it feels like to be Aurora's voice and her mind and her body, and what it feels like to be sitting in her chair. The sun knows what it's like. It is a composite mosaic of all of our experiences joined together. It knows what it is like, and it begins to become unity consciousness. Wah, 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 wah. You're getting all of it. You're a tiny emanation of the sun that's gone into the denser realm of the planet. That you're here on a mission. The mission is being a sensory organ of the sun, here in this level of density, broadcasting back your experiences. You are the stellar consciousness that has come through the refinery of the chakras. Now, I often talk about the journey coming from the lower to the upper. You eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it goes in at the level of red and circulates up your spine and upward into pure abstraction, then goes back to the sun. What about the energy in the opposite direction? Draw it out for you instead of being a little lazy, because I'm trying to mush everything together into a short amount of time. The signal that comes from up here, down in through your crown, and then circulates down into the greater dilution of larger waves. It's not worse. The reason why it has to be diluted is because this energy up here is super fast and super intense. Just like plants can be burned. If you put a little baby plant outside in the sun on a very hot day, its leaves will burn up like a crisp. You don't want that to happen. If you put the physicality structure of your cellular bodies and you had that immediately exposed to the pure light of awareness that comes from the sun and the stars, it would fry you to a crisp. Your cellular matter is not made to have the direct experience of what we would call God or pure abstraction. The intensity of the energy would fry your body. You can't fly to the sun and just stand there, engulfed in the sun. You can't do that. What would happen to your body? You would vaporize. You would go directly from a solid to a gaseous state because so much energy would be added to you. What you have to do is take that impulse, that is a consciousness thought, light impulse, and turn it into violet. Like, where's my thing? Turn it into violet, then turn it into indigo, then turn it into turquoise, then turn it into heart love, then turn it into yellow, then turn it into orange. Then it can be a neurological experience that's in the level of physicality. So you don't want to fry your physicality by putting this pure light of awareness directly into your cellular structure. It has to be stepped down. It's not a bad thing. Be flavored like that. If it's up here like this, it will burn you. It is too high. It is too fast. It is too much. So your stellar consciousness has to come through this refinery of your chakras. Higher energy impulses have to be stepped down and come down or ground into the denser realms. You have incarnated as a higher dimensional signal structure into the flesh. Positive things, what grounding is. But a lot of people are like, I don't like grounding. I don't like going down. I don't like being in the physical world, and the physical world sucks and has gravity. Gravity's taking me down. Look, I'm going down on my screen. Gravity's taking me down. Bro, don't bring me down, man. So we understand how you feel about that, how people feel about that, how I'm trying to tell you, though, there's a balance, just like there is a homeostasis of water comes in and water comes out, food comes in and food goes out, metabolism goes in and metabolism goes out in terms of caloric energy. So too in terms of energy. Light energy comes into us from the sun and the stars, and it's high energy, and it gets stepped down and it goes into the lower levels, and it sustains our lower levels. And lower levels also take energy and raise it up to higher levels and broadcast it back to the sun. And we achieve this balance. And when we maintain this balance, it's called homeostasis or metabolism, and it keeps us going in a positive, perpetual motion, frictionless machine apparatus. There's been a false separation between the flesh and its origin. This is your flesh. This is your body. This is your incarnation, your meat, carne, meat, and it is actually good and positive, and it's part of the sun. It's solidified light. It's not a bad thing at all. It's positive. You have a positive thing that's your body, that's right here. That is the slowed down light going slower than the speed of light, and it's what allows you to have a physicality presence. So there's not this false separation anymore. There's a beautiful joining together in partnership between your light body and your physical body. Physical body is just light that's going slower than the speed of light. The central black hole of the galaxy, the core, is the center of intelligence, and it holds everything together with strength, with the gravitational glue. It's not only the significance in terms of your origins of consciousness, but also your destination. Where are you coming from and where are you going to? You are a sojourner. You are here for a sojourn, a brief visit here into the world of physicality. These are your borrowed clothing, your borrowed resources, your borrowed light, and you're here for a brief sojourn, a restfulness on your journey, and then you will emit and go back to the sun, back to the stars, back to the galactic center. That is also your destination. It is a big, giant, beautiful time loop, and you are a neurological signal, and you do not just get stuck out here in this level of being. You are definitely on the beautiful circuit, a journey of completion to return to the place that are your origins. Artificial barrier, energetic and mental, between matter and flesh and its origins is now being dismantled. It was a teaching or a consciousness barrier, or a barrier of expectation or of definition or of language or of consciousness, and how you speak about, think about, write about, and believe about the separation between matter and spirit, or beingness and physicality, structure, or incarnation, versus the freedom of being a purely non-incarnated thing. And embodied humans can now more easily connect to all of the little sparks of consciousness in other time places. As you change your mind and your perception of who and what you are and what it is to be embodied. Remember, I was talking about that quarantine of consciousness that was stuck around your planet, but that I recorded these lessons back in 2014 and everything's redefined now. Good job, humans. You have redefined to the point that you now are no longer bifurcated in your own being, my flesh versus my spirit, or bifurcated in your journey of experience, saying, I'm this person here on this planet, and I'm, not connected to any of that other thought, consciousness, light that is elsewhere, elsewhen. You are part of the entirety. All of the stars and all of their planets and everyone who lives on other planets, some of whom fly in Clank spaceships, some of whom do not. But that's all you. That's like saying, I'm light that's in a body. My body is made of light. The stars that are in the sky are made of light. I'm that light. I'm the galactic supercenter. And I'm every single civilization that is made out of light that is out there, either embodiment or non-embodiment or semi-embodiment. So speaking to otherworldly consciousnesses instantaneously becomes a normal thing. I'm not going to have to fly across the vast reaches of interstellar space to talk to the people of Alpha Centauri. I fold time, space, and consciousness with my, magical scarf, and bring them closer to me, or bring myself closer to them, so that we are having a conversation, because we're not distant, unrelated beings. We are actually close together, highly related beings that are neurons in a larger time animal. This is how the enormous organism thinks or sends neural signals and feels. It is analogous to the information transfer that is instantaneous between the galactic center and our star as a broadcasting beacon. So galactic center to star, boom, that's instantaneous. There's no time. How about between us and Alpha Centauri? Boom, there is no time. So we're getting to this point of cosmic citizenship, galactic citizenship, where it's basically my elbow talks to my big toe. Of course they talk. They're all connected to the same brain. We're all connected to the same galactic center. Wah, 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 wah. There's no time space between us. We're completely connected. This higher dimensional being that we are a part of thinks through a higher dimension. I already got on that part. The galaxies connected together are talking to each other through a higher dimensional truth. Higher dimension can travel from galactic center to the sun in no time. You can connect to the sun in no time. No time. You're moving beyond time. You have the sun inside of you. You have the galactic sun inside of you. You have the singularity inside of you. All singularities are doorways of consciousness that lead to the sun, the stars, the central core of consciousness in the epicenter of the galaxy. The sun has emanations of time, timelines, and possibilities. All of the timelines of the time vortex are emanations from the sun. It's everything I always draw in this class. I'm going to say it again for you. All of the timelines of the time vortex are an emanation from the sun. So all of those timelines come from the sun. The far peripheral timelines that are weird or distorted or not the true core persona of who you are, and the central core timeline, that infinity timeline, the tent pole up the center that you really want to be on. A thought that is being explored within the neurology, within this enormous larger organism. You are the thought that is exploring the neurology, including the peripheral timelines, the notes you don't want to play and you want to get to this. That's the right note. All of these notes or possible timelines or possibilities of life are emitted from the sun, and you're exploring all of them. Like my toe is exploring the smashing into the coffee table. I'm like, ow, that hurt. I don't want to do that. And you send signals by crashing into the membrane of death to the sun. You're like, ow, that hurt. I don't want to do that. That's why the sun cares about you and your journey immensely. Your crashing into various time objects definitely affects the sun and its journey. The timelines of your life and your emanations and your life experiences are consciousnesses, quote unquote, light, that are being explored by this larger organism. Light, like I use light to look around and explore things. You're a sensory organ. You're a sensory organ of light. You're a sensory organ of consciousness. Consciousness coming to know itself. The great story of the universe. I'm not done. That's only part one of this teaching. Can you believe it, guys? So definitely, I'm not going to end the recording, but check out the recorded stuff on Teachable because it's so dense that it takes me 2.5 hours just to get through part one, but I'm going to do part two also because it's important. Before I get on to there's a beautiful question wonderment from Aaron, and I don't want this to go on and become irrelevant. Aaron, thank you for being here and for what you asked. He says, hey, Aurora, whenever it's appropriate in your teaching today, could you touch upon the spiritual analogs of the exotic types of stars? Objective materialism identifies as things like brown dwarfs, for example, the stars which supposedly aren't massive enough to make it to the implosion to the black hole stage and sort of go quiet. Thank you. You are so very welcome. Thank you. I'm hugging you for your beautiful question because this also has to do a lot with what we're experiencing. When I talk about these galactic superwaves that organize the possibilities and probabilities of dust and gases into a nebula that coalesces and becomes a star, that's the conception of a star. Stars don't always get conceived, just like every time an ejacula hits an ovum, you don't always get a baby. You don't always get conception. Conception in the human body happens as a result of this perfect trajectory and this perfect profusion or expansion, or you could call it sacred geometric explosion, unfoldment of these forces that come together and create these perfect flower of life patterns. Doesn't happen all the time. It's a miracle when it happens. It's amazing when it happens. It's a miracle. It's an inexplicable event. It's a supernatural occurrence. It's amazing. You're all the end result of an amazing unlikelihood. Same thing with birth of stars. The star being born is an amazing unlikelihood that happens when these super waves move through dust and gases. Sometimes, I don't want to be mean, but it's a little bit of a wah-wah. Like it doesn't quite have as much energy as it needs to be able to coalesce, come together, and start to emit light and music. That is what is known as a brown dwarf. It is a coalescence of the potentials of a star that never quite gets together enough star stuff to get itself together enough to start to emit light. So a brown dwarf are some of these smaller, non-emitting astronomical bodies. Means that it has a presence, it has a huge, it's massive, it has a huge amount of gravity. It affects the world around it through gravitational presences of sucking and pulling, or billiard balls connecting with one another, but it doesn't emit light and consciousness. It doesn't sing songs. It doesn't innovate songs. Here's a song. I'm making a song, I'm a star, I'm making a song, I'm singing. But what if there's not any music coming out? What if it's no music, no thought, no consciousness, just a piano with no music coming out of it? That is what a brown dwarf is like. Potentials for life that did not meet the requirements for emission, for emitting, not an emitter, but definitely an effector of reality, going around and affecting stuff around it, but not enough to emit. So there has been, I'll just speak to this very briefly, the question of planet Nibiru. An extrasolar body, meaning beyond our solar system, with a hugely periodic orbit, meaning 26,000 years or more or greater, possibly hundreds of thousands or millions of years, sometimes comes around into our neighborhood and does stuff. I want to say F stuff up, but does stuff in terms of its gravitational effect on others. It is a magnetic being. It is an infrared being. It is not emitting in the visible spectrum that we know as Roy G. Biv light. So you don't see it in the sky as a giant glowing object, but it's up there, out there, beyond there. And it has its own level of consciousness and awareness that is affecting or afflicting the world around it, but not in the same way as music. Music is life. Music is harmonic, organized sound principles. Cover your ears. That is not music. That is just a bunch of random stuff like my fist mashing the keyboard. Brown dwarfs and other extrasolar bodies like that are the end result of something that is not a successful conception. It doesn't follow the harmonic rules of life, doesn't emit songs and have the same levels of inner organization. And sometimes it goes around with its chaotic, I want to say caca-poo-poo, all over the place type of emanations and affects the other stuff that's around it. However, we are not going to be destroyed by planet Nibiru or a brown dwarf, although we might have been perturbed by its perturbations. You get it? Like, I'm going around, I'm like, like a person that's off balance, and I'm all wild and crazy and going all over the place. And I'm knocking into you and you and you and you and you. But that does not have to end inevitably in you and you falling over dead. What can happen is that you maintain your stability and your flight through time, and your music is strong. Wait, let's play some good music here. Play some good music. Your music is strong. You stay alive in spite of the wild, crazy gyrations and perturbations of these other things that come around. And this is also part of the story of life. At the end of part one, I finished and I said, consciousness coming to know itself, the great story of the universe. I'm not here to demonize a brown dwarf or make it sound like it's bad or wrong. It is an area of ignorance or imbalance. It does not have its SHIT together. It needs to be restructured. It's got problems, like many people or consciousnesses in the world. But that does not mean that we need to demonize it or look at it as something evil or bad. But also, you don't want it to screw with you. Keep your music strong. Keep your life force and coherence strong so that you maintain the story of the journey of the awareness of time. That we want this time animal larger body to stay alive, not to die. Let me talk about part two. Part two is called Consciousness Discovering Itself. The sun emanations or broadcasts of consciousness are energy on many levels, including time, not only visible light, but subtle energy of awareness, big. The sun as a large ball of possibilities in the sky, a time ball, get it? The journey of light as being an infinite journey unless it interacts with an object, positive infinite journey. The world of matter, the third dimension, remember third rock from the sun, Jimi Hendrix, third dimension, we're in a box experiencing what it's like to be incarnated. As a world of matter slowed down on its journey, matter stopping, slowing, or redirecting light on its journey. That is what a mirror or a prism or a material object does. A mirror reflects. The shiny surface of my painting right now is reflecting light. It's bouncing off of the shiny surface like a mirror. Prisms and crystals refract. I'm wearing crystals on my necklace right now. Light bounces through them, but also gets shifted in color, changes its color, changes its pattern, it's refracted. And then also sometimes a solid object that is opaque stops light on its journey. None of this is bad, wrong, or evil. The light becomes part of the planetary experience, and it circulates here until those broadcasts are sent back to the sun. Books circulate through a library. You borrow those books, you read them, then you send them back to the library. All of that is good. Don't keep your library books and steal them forever. You know what I mean? Send them back to the library so someone else can use them. The journey of light, the continual circulation and the circulation system of light itself. The shadow behind each physical object, the place where light is not. Back to my whiteboard. I've already done a lot of this, guys. Sometimes I jump ahead and now in my notes I'm recapping. That's this zone over here, what I was drawing over here. Green light waves that are going on their journey, but they slow down and become this green object. And then that means that there's this area over here, the area of no light, which is known as the shadow. The shadow is the implication or implied world created by the coalescence of matter. Yes, there is a place that would be considered the sacred shadow. There is nothing wrong with it. Sacred shadow and sacred shadow work, that's my dog sneezing, is different than illusion or false light. So there is you as an object and then this area of shadow over here, or you as an ego presence and this area of shadow, your area of ignorance, negative inverted characteristics and personality structures, and the stuff that you got to learn about yourself that you can't see directly, like the back of your own head. But all of that is very different than, let's say, a totally artificial false light creation or a holographic projection or like a movie, projector of something that's totally fabricated that has absolutely no bearing on the original object itself. So the object creates a shadow that has some information by implication as to the original structure of the original object. Boom, it's worth exploring and knowing about. A completely fabricated reality that is made out of false light has very little bearing on the original object that it might be related to or about. It would be like a lie or a completely fictional story that is told about this original object. There's a difference between the two. I must emphasize this in terms of what people are calling shadow work or work that is done on the astral or anything done on this level here of pure anthropomorphism, pure human-based seeing. If you're not also connected up here into the abstract world and you're working here only on the astral realm, watch out for false light projections. It's not all sacred shadow. There is such a thing as technologically created false light projection that is not related to your human ego, the things that you are and that you don't want to, that you want to deny, that you want to pretend aren't there. Sometimes things are just projections. That's just like, that's dirt that's on me. That's not the truth about me at all. But sometimes something is a sacred shadow. You have to determine the difference between these two things in your own reality. Lyson, thank you so much for being here because I know we're going into OT overtime. Thank you for being here and catch the rest in the archive. And we would love you and thank you for being here. So shadow in terms of materiality presence, like in my face, if you look at my face, this part over here is highlighted and illuminated by the light. It is informed. There's more information there. There's more light. There's more consciousness. This part over here has shadow. This part over here has deep shadow. If you were going to paint it, you'd make that part brown or black. These contrasts in our dualistic world help to bring forth a picture of reality. Mostly we are visual structured people. We're not like bats that look at the world through sonar. Bats build a picture or structure of the world around them using sonar, sending out signals and feeling the signals bounce back. It is more of a tactile reality, a feeling state around you. But humans are mostly visually centered, and we look at the contrast between light versus dark, and we say, I see a face, I see light, I see dark, I see a face. Guess what? My little dog is back here sleeping on her dog bed. Where is she? She's right there. Dogs build a picture of the world based on scent, and so do a lot of insects in terms of pheromone. I smell this over in this direction. I smell this over in this direction. I smell these different things. And they build a picture of reality based upon scents and odors and smells. And it's almost incomprehensible to what the world would look like through the nose of a dog. Who knows what it would, quote unquote, look like if we tried to translate that into our world. Very, very different. And all of these are valid approaches and presences. And I encourage everyone not to be anthropocentric or too focused on the human journey and diminishing of the sensorium of other animals, because all of them are also emanations from the star, using light that is borrowed from the library of consciousness and picking up senses from the sensory organisms of light and consciousness, sending it out to the sun and the stars. The sun and the stars want to know what this world smells like to a dog. They want to know what this world feels like to a rock shrimp, or something that feels pure vibration. They want, how about a crystal? Here, this is an amethyst crystal. They want to know, the sun and the stars want to know, what does life feel like from the viewpoint of a mineral consciousness that might have a huge time scale and perceive differently than we do with our eyeballs. That's all I'm trying to say with that. But we have a dualistic sense of thing versus thing, object versus object, light versus dark, because of our perception structure. I did this in the teaching about duality. Light, which is condensed or squashed together in one place, is what matter is. So it does not extend or stretch out into the areas of existence that it would have coalesced into as matter. And so these areas of shadow and ignorance are places where there is no light. And really, if you're doing your shadow work in terms of the anthropocentric viewpoint, the way that you conquer or heal those areas is by placing light, consciousness, awareness into them. Learning. You learn about your shadow, you put light into your shadow, and then it is transformed and redefined as a place that is no longer ignorance, but now you know about it. But that's really, really different, again, than putting light into a world of false light, which would be a fictional reality. If you put a bunch of your light into a fictional reality, I think that that's just feeding and upholding a fictional reality and not necessarily something that we want. That's all I'm trying to say on that. Where I'm from, in my Aurora Collective and the Galactic timescale, it is a continuum of light. This is very different than the world, and not better or worse than, but different levels of being. This world that I'm talking about here, matter, where there is a contrast between object and shadow, light and dark. I am from a place where it is all about light, and there are simply different qualities and textures and frequencies and strengths of light. That's when I talk about this harmonic language, the language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. Music is tone, and that's also part of it. But light can have different textures. It can have different forces. Like this light is flowing very, very hard. This light is flowing very softly. Where I come from, it's not like here's an area of light and then here's darkness. There's no light. There's light everywhere. Light and consciousness everywhere. So it's not like there's this area that we know about, then this area we don't know nothing about, that you do know something about that area, but it might have a different quality, because we've come to this idea like you have to have light versus dark, you have to have highlight versus shadow in order to see a person's face, and this is how you learn about yourself. But where I'm from, there's a place where you have just light versus or contrasting with other colors of light, other frequencies of light, other tones or textures of light, and you do not have any of these areas of severe darkness or ignorance or lack of light, lack of consciousness. You've got consciousness everywhere. I come from a place that's a continuum of consciousness. It's a different level of being. It's the galactic level of being, all right? So just giving you that teaser, not spoiler alert, but a teaser of what it's like when you get up to that level. When light comes into the physical realm, it circulates from organism to organism. Light becomes the leaf through photosynthesis, and then something eats the leaf, and then something eats the organism, and then something eats the algae, and something eats the chicken. Let me go through this one. You are a solidified light vessel, eating solidified light, and you are a refinery of light, taking the physical matter and refining it through your digestion, up through the layers of your being until it becomes a neural impulse, which translates the experience of physical matter in the physical realm, the analog experience, into a digital, just muting you, my dear, there you go, into a digital or non-physical experience that can be broadcast or sent as pure energy returning to the sun. And that's in bold in my notes. That's stuff that matters. Your mind and your experience and your light body emit light. You emit light. Do you know that you do? Of course you do. We have in our world this type of poetic way of saying about someone that they really light up the room, they really shine. This is what we say about certain people, or even being illuminated, being enlightened, any of those things. Every single one of you emits light. You emit light in the sense of being infrared. You're warm-blooded beings. You're warm, and you emit caloric energy. When you do your workout, you get warm, you get hot, heated up, and you got to sweat because you're hot. You emit light in the sense of an EEG, electroencephalogram, from science, where you place electrodes on the subject's scalp, and you will sense their emanations coming off of their thought structures in their brains, actual electromagnetic field that comes off of your brain. But you also emit light in the sense of, I'm emitting consciousness. I'm talking to you guys with my mouth parts. I'm telling you stuff with my words. I'm emitting ideas, idea structures, and consciousness to you. If you paint a painting, you're emitting light. If you play some music, play it well, you're emitting light, you're emitting consciousness and awareness. You are constantly emitting light. You are thinking, you are emitting more subtle waves of consciousness in terms of your emotional energy. You know I need to drink when you hear that. All of these colors, all of these layers of your being are the more subtle layers of light that you're emitting. Everything that's in this little diagram over my shoulder, the layers of your chakras of your body, those are all subtle layers of your body, and it's the light that you're emitting, your emotional energy, your thought energy, your heart. When you are loving the world, when you are embedded in time, when you love another person, when you love yourself, you are emitting the love tone. Love tone you are emitting. You broadcast back the food you eat to the sun in meditation and mindfulness. Focused completely on this moment now, you exist in an unperturbed flow of time. So this is the power that I was reiterating from that other teaching. When you eat mindfully without distraction, which I know can be hard because people have lots of things to accomplish. So like, I'm going to eat while I'm in my car, or eat while I'm doing this, or eat while I do my emails. But just, if you can, set aside 7 minutes in order to eat your food and just focus on that moment and that time and who you are, feeling yourself in your body, feeling yourself as light that has been forged in the death of previous stars, eating your calcium, eating your peanut butter and jelly, and feels what it feels like inside of your mouth, and be a taste bud on the tongue of God, and be unperturbed in the flow of time. Time as being a perfectly clear medium that you only perceive its existence when it is perturbed, when there is shadow, when there are these areas of fastness and slowness. Time being a clear medium, or water that we swim in, just like a fish swims. If the water is perfectly still, you don't see or perceive the perturbations or the shadows. When you are focused on the now, your consciousness is not dispersed over time, and you become an incredibly clear conduit or signal with which to broadcast the borrowed light that you are using from the sun. It's like saying thank you. It is an act of pure gratitude. I say thank you to the sun when I'm like, thank you for my body presence. Thank you for my consciousness and my neurology and my ability to be aware and have these senses. And then thank you for the thing that I'm eating, whatever it is, the apple, the avocado, the coffee, the, whatever you like to eat, the granola. That stuff is stuff that I'm saying thank you for, literally by giving the experience back to the one consciousness, unity consciousness that has created and given me that borrowed light to experience. All of your experience is based upon borrowing light from the sun. This timeline, these consciousnesses, this energy, and the electrochemical energy that animates your neurology, neuron to neuron, jumping across the Grand Canyon, is all on loan to you, and eventually all will return to the sun. So you can either be a good patron and return those books while you're alive, be like, oh, I borrowed these books and sent them back to the library. Through meditation and mindfulness, sending back that information in the live stream while it is relevant, or upon the moment of your death, when you're like, I have a large stack of books that I've accumulated from the cosmic library over the course of my life. And now, whoosh, I send them all back to, here's a giant wheelbarrow of information back to the sun and the stars of everything that I experienced on my journey here. The sun has its own journey of consciousness. It is being a star for a certain amount of time until its consciousness either implodes or does a backflip back into itself from every direction and becomes a black hole, which is another doorway to the infinite. So you get to experience what it is to be a star. That's like experiencing what it is to be a dog or an insect or a human or a star. To no longer think of death as the end of consciousness, but as a doorway to infinity. A central ray of consciousness being split into its diverse elements in the same way that a beam of visible light is refracted by a prism. Beam of white light goes into a prism, like a refractor, a crystal, and comes out as Roy G. Biv. Beam of white light comes into the galactic supercenter here in the whiteboard. Beam of light. Here's a beam of light color. I don't know if you can see it, it's white. You can't see it because it's white, but a beam of light, let's choose a better color. Beam of light comes into the galactic supercenter and then is refracted into all of these little tiny stars that are all over here, and then is sent out into here and is sent out into here. It is split up into its constituent elements. Characteristics, now we're talking about characteristics. Each of these layers of being has different characteristics. Each of these different stars has different characteristics, a different slice of visible light, different recipe of visible light. The beings from Alpha Centauri have different characteristics than the beings from the solar system here. And the beings from Jupiter have different characteristics than the beings from Earth. Everybody's got their own unique energy signature. Everybody is part of this refraction process of the unified white light of consciousness that is the great being. There are different exacerbations. Like if you're from Jupiter, you might have a particular characteristic exacerbated, more of this, less of this. And if you're from Earth, you have more of this and less of this. Not better or worse, but this is how we can understand the different characteristics of different places, time places, and also how it might be necessary to mitigate certain characteristics. Let's say, like, I've got a lot of this characteristic over here. If I go around everywhere else, like red is a very strong color in paintings. It can just tend to overtake. It's like, there's a lot of red in that species and they're going to get over here and they're getting, this whole area is going to be red over here. Like you got to have a balance of colors, good balance of colors. And that is what makes the symphony of life or of music really happen. We have a balance of frequencies, we have balance of colors. You don't want to have too much red or too much this or too much orange. So that's the whole idea of species achieving maturity before they fly off of the surface of their planet. So you should not use a metal clank clank spaceship just because you don't have the maturity to fly using only your wings of consciousness, bending and folding time space in order to communicate with other beings, because the color that you are might be a very strong presence that needs to be mitigated by other colors and presences so that you don't just get a whole painting that's filled with lots of red or too much purple, too much red, whatever it is. Gotta have a good color balance. Each Roy G. Biv as layers of light moving at slightly different rates. All of these colors are light moving at slightly different rates. As light enters you, it is slowed down in a special way, leading to layers of successive density and levels of experience. You are the crystal, you are the lens, you are that through which light flows and is refracted into the Roy G. Biv pattern. Your unique presence is what makes these different characteristics be emphasized, split apart, or exacerbated on their journey. Each one of your chakras is associated with a particular layer of consciousness and is the result of light being slowed down to different rates. That's this picture back here. Red as light that has been slowed down the most in our frequency slice of pie into the physical realm. Light as mass, matter, which you can replace light with consciousness. Consciousness as mass or matter. This is getting big here. Unconditional love as a lesser ray of the totality ray, the white light of consciousness. Emanations from our star as emanations of white light, the totality ray. Additive color mixing, I already did that earlier. Roy G. Biv equals white. Red plus orange plus yellow plus green plus light blue plus dark blue plus violet equals white light when you are dealing with the purity of light waves, not pigments from my bucket of paint. White light is the central ray of consciousness. That basically means when you add up all of the life on our planet and all of the life in the solar system and everything that is our star and everything that is every star and everything that is in our galaxy and everything that is in every single galaxy, all of that quote unquote paint mixed into one quote unquote giant bucket adds up to the purity or the white light of consciousness that is infinity, that is the divine presence, that is this God abstraction, that is this creatorship, that is consciousness itself. And we are all fragmented, refracted fragments of fractal fragments of consciousness exploring and coming to know itself. These questions. Physical matter is meant to be transmitted back to the sun star. Big. A loop of consciousness, light on its journey. These are answers to the questions of like the big toe. Why is the sun making these emanations? Why is matter coalescing into solid objects? Sorry, why is light coalescing into solid objects? That's what that should say. Why are we as refineries of experience refining the stimuli that come into our physical body senses and sending them back to the higher dimensions up there, out there? The answer is we are on a journey that is self-exploratory, a journey of consciousness. That's the real answer. Why is all this stuff? Where, mommy, daddy, why are all this stuff happening? Like, what am I trying to say here? Not to condescend to you in any way, but to say that these are basic foundation questions. When I say mommy, daddy, like these are the questions that we ask when we're a tiny child. Why is all this stuff happening? Why does matter exist? Why the whole rigmarole of having this experience? And the answer is because we are consciousness exploring itself. There's a feedback loop between the sun that emanates something, sends stuff out, and what is emanated back to the sun as a parent of consciousness, humans as children or offspring of the sun star, not only humans, but all life, all embodied life, life on Jupiter. Is there life on Mars? Life on Mars, life on any planet, life in any galaxy. You can tell I'm getting silly when I'm starting to break into song. Life everywhere is an emanation, not only from our sun, but from the stars. Looking at the night sky, understanding that all of the stars are points of consciousness and they're actually living beings. And now we're into astrology, the mythology, not astronomy, but astrology, the mythology of the sky and the beings who inhabit the sky. Like looking at a particular star formation, saying that's Orion, the hunter, and that there's a person there and he's a man and he holds a club and he's going around and he's gonna, hunt and get something. That's a mythological exploration of the characteristics and star consciousnesses that are emanated from that particular sector of the galaxy. And there is some presence to this. And the whole story that has been made up through the human viewpoint from this perspective, time space, standing on this rock over many thousands of years and saying, yeah, that being is over there and then there's this being over here and they're coming together and they're interacting in this way, and all of these narrative stories that have been created, there is some validity to that in the sense of we are consciousness exploring itself. We have these varying different characteristics and we are in an interplay of a drama, meaning like this thing did this and then this thing happened here and then this thing happened here, a whole narrative drama. But the center of the galaxy is who you really are. The center of the galaxy is an ascended master, and the center of all of the galaxies is an ascended master. And our sun and the light of pure consciousness that comes from our sun is the light of mastery. And when you in your own body come to that level of coalescing all of the colors of the rainbow, who you are, into pure white light, you remember that you are God. You are this pure light of pure consciousness. You are the sun emanating itself into all of these fragmentary fragments, refracting itself, and you're every star. You're not just that star, you're every star, you're the galaxy, you're not just one galaxy, you're every galaxy, you're the time animal that contains or spans over all of these galaxies. Because all of these points of consciousness are connected together as the neurology of a much larger being. They're all singularities as part of my magical scarf. You are one individuated cell in the planetary body of Earth, but you're also a tiny point of consciousness that's an emanation of the sun solar consciousness, which is a tiny point of emanation from the galactic consciousness, which is a tiny point of emanation from the larger time animal that emanates all of these galaxies. You are an individuated cell. What is happening on Earth? This is big in terms of Earth politics, planetary health, and the struggle for freedom here in our world is intimately connected to what is happening in the galaxy at large. So please don't be falsely believing that everything up there, out there at the level and the scale of the galaxy is totally cool and fruity, or that there's no problems up there at all, or that everything is like, I'm doing the backstroke and I'm eating a strawberry and everything is fine. No, the challenge, your personal struggles to be free mentally and to be a master in control of your own mind and consciousness and your own reality emanations is intimately connected to the stars, which are also on a journey towards freedom, which also speaks to the questions of, mommy, daddy, why does matter exist? And why is all this stuff happening? And why am I busy stubbing my toe on a coffee table and feeling it and sending it back to the sun? Because the sun also wants to be free. Because the galaxy also wants to be free. Because the many multitudes of galaxies also want to be free. Because the larger time being and time animal also wants to be free. And your personal struggles to be free are absolutely exemplary of the larger struggles, and your triumphs are triumphs on a grand scale. When you move incrementally towards freedom in your own journey of existence, hooray for you, hooray for the planet, hooray for the solar system, hooray for the galaxy, hooray for the entire time animal that you're submerged within. That is a huge, it's a leveling up of everything. Everything levels up at the same time. So another way of saying it graphically is you go from being slanted in the time field and you are ascending and you become an ascended master like this. As you do that, the planet is shifting. The solar system is shifting. The galaxy is shifting. All of the galaxies are shifting. The larger time animal is shifting. Everything is shifting into that moment of divine reconnection and self-perception, the I am God moment. That is a neurological signal, a jump across the Grand Canyon from neuron A into neuron B, the I am God moment. I'm God, I'm God. That is what all of this galactic superstructure is thinking in that moment. I only have a few more moments left in this broadcast, that's why I'm going fast. But the observation of the sun's emanations, the coronal holes, mass ejections, energy ray emanations like gamma rays or neutrinos, the changing of the magnetic poles in the sun, space weather, and all of that, and how that interacts with the quality and existence on Earth. It seems obvious now after this conversation, but I have to say it, it's part of my notes, that all of that, the sun as the creator and emanator of all that we are, will of course be creating and affecting life and events and awareness in the journey of Earth. So I recorded this lesson that I'm speaking from back in 2014. Everybody was coming out of the portal of 2012 and recognizing like, hey, the sun has all these weird coronal mass ejections. The sun's poles seem to be shifting north and south. There's all these weird superstructures, and sometimes X-class flares come to our planet and it might disrupt your internet, or it might make you feel weird and tired, or there might make you feel energized. And now after everybody's been studying space weather for a long time, and there are people that study the Schumann resonance and Earth's particular frequency, ringing resonant tone, la, 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 Earth is ringing. All of that is absolutely intimately connected with the journey and developmental processes of our sun star. And that's all connected to the larger neurology of the rest of the galaxy, the rest of the stars that make up our galaxy. And that's all connected through the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy to other greater centers of consciousness. The sun is affecting definitely your quality of life and your personal body and your personal light body, and also politics and human superstructures and things such as the economy and whether people are invading countries or things like that, you know, human politics. And it's also affecting planetary interstructures. Oh, I didn't even get to this. The space weather has changed on Jupiter. The space weather has changed on Saturn. So Jupiter's great eye and the storms on Jupiter have changed and transformed. The hexagonal pattern at Saturn's poles has changed and transformed and changed its structure and its color. The atmosphere of Mars has changed. The magnetic field of some different planets just within our solar system has changed. Uranus, your anus has changed. We can make a lot of jokes when we get lighthearted down here. But yes, all of these different structures beyond our own planetary structure within the harmonic structure of our solar system have been changing because our sun is changing, our star is changing, and our star is changing because all of these stars are changing because all of this music is changing, because the galaxy is changing, because the larger time animal is changing. The galaxy becomes a whole entire continuum of consciousness. And this is really what's happening in terms of humans recognizing life beyond our own planet. You start to see there's not only life on other planets, but that you are intimately connected with that life on other planets, that they're also in a struggle for freedom or on a journey towards freedom and self-exploration, that your journey is their journey. You're heading into unity consciousness, you're all one being, and there is no longer a distinction being made about whether you as life and as awareness and as consciousness emanate from Earth and from this place or from another star system. That is the beginning. That's like, welcome to the dance party. That is the beginning of galactic consciousness, where you're like, yes, you're from another time place, or from these coordinates, or from this star, or you look different, or you're from here, but you are also consciousness on its journey, moving towards freedom, and that there is this mutual upliftment and respect in terms of wanting everyone to level up, wanting the entire galaxy to level up, and wishing for the health, healing, and vitality and continued longevity of the entire time field. That was an epic long 3-hour broadcast. I know that's a lot, and that's why I only focus on either level 1 or level 2, but I did get through all of my notes. And I have a commitment at 2 p.m. So I'm just having a few moments to wrap up. Anybody has anything that they would like to say or add? I know that that's saying like, I only have this amount of time. Sorry to rush you, but yeah, I would love to hear from anyone. If you have any brief comments or anything that I can read, you can write it in the chat. Or if not, there's always the comments on YouTube afterwards, because I love to have the back and forth in the conversation. I don't mean to press you, limit or inhibit you in your self-expression, but thank you for understanding that sometimes everything is about timing is everything. Melissa says, thank you, Aurora. I appreciate you so much. Love you all. Thank you. Appreciation back to you. Thank you and love back to you. Reflecting all of the borrowed sunlight, love energy that is coming from up there through us back to you. Really loving and appreciate you. And thank you for being in parallel, being part of this marathon of consciousness, being part of it together. Aaron says, thank you very much for the share. Very insightful and uplifting. Time to digest all the good food I just took in. So beautifully well put. That is exactly what it is. And yeah, there's a lot to think and process about on all of this. So let me end the recording for right now. Thank you. Trisha's also saying thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Really, I'm in gratitude for all of you. Thank you. You know, that's a false ending, because what I just did was realize I wanted to say super, super fast that, oh, hold on, let me mute this for her. I'm getting these circle templates cut for members of this class in preparation for your drawing homework. You will get fun drawing assignments. So I'm getting circle templates cut in the size of 12 inches, 6, 4, 3, 2.4, 2, and then 1.7. If you are interested and into it, you are absolutely welcome to contact me, and sets are about $35. And I'm just doing it at cost from the manufacturer. So in order to facilitate your homework assignments, because some people have a bit of challenge working with the compasses to draw everything. So if you're interested in that, contact me. That's it. Now goodbye for real. Goodbye for real. Thank you. Okay.
Wait, what?